The story opens on a newspaper, headlines screaming, a sense of urgency clinging to the ink, a subtle wrongness permeating the very paper itself. Each word printed seemed to whisper of death. Marquis Mainturn, killed in a carriage accident. Was it an accident, or was it murder? Monday, an earl perished in a slip and fall. The string of fatalities seemed endless, a litany of dreadful incidents unfolding one after another, filling the populace with dread. Tuesday, an army officer fell from his horse and died. Wednesday, a cruise ship sank, claiming the lives of all passengers on the top deck. Thursday, a young lady succumbed to poison at a tea party. Friday, Saturday, even Sunday, all reported deaths. Holding the newspaper was a noble lady dressed in a tailored gown, her long hair cascading around her. As she read the news, a strange feeling washed over her. This was the 7th death this week. The girl possessed a face of exquisite beauty, yet her expression was far from ordinary. To her, the news in the paper was like a bolt from the blue. She screamed silently within her mind, "What did I do this time?" The initial setting is a world in the era of monsters, creatures unable to coexist with any other living being, posing a threat to the Empire. Nearly everyone had given up fighting the monsters due to the overwhelming disparity in power. "Stop it!" A girl with fluffy pink hair, dressed in a long white dress, cried out. She was like a savior to all mankind. Her appearance was like that of a fairy, dispelling all darkness and cruelty. Indeed, her destiny was that of the saintess, one who could communicate with monsters. With her extraordinary abilities, the saintess fulfilled her mission. That was to save the Empire in its time of peril. During that journey, the saintess found the love of her life. It seemed like a fairy tale, but it wasn't. The presence of a wicked woman cast a dark shadow over the future of the Holy Maiden. Tybe Louisa Gay, the former saintess, the wicked woman, or rather, the former saintess Tybe, believed the saintess had stolen her place. Everything she took was mine. A venomous woman who harbored resentment towards the protagonist. She fell into a delusional absurdity, harassing the saintess in various ways. But each time, the saintess managed to resolve the dangers with her wisdom. The wicked woman grew increasingly anxious as her schemes failed one after another. It would be truly dangerous if things continued like this, if she disappeared. A dark thought crossed the former saintess Tybe's mind. Yes, she smiled triumphantly. If the saintess were gone, I would become the true saintess. But the rise of the wicked woman also met with failure. Her plot did not succeed. The greatest punishment for the greedy and the cruel was the execution of Tybe Louisa Gay. The villain's end was execution, her head displayed for all to see. In the end, the beautiful and kind protagonist, the saintess who saved the entire kingdom, lived happily ever after with her beloved in a world free of evil. The entire story was called Taming the Monster Flower, or Monster Flower for short. At first, she didn't even realize she had transmigrated into that novel. She remembered 20 years ago, when she was just an ordinary university student in South Korea, a car accident on her way home had claimed her life. After those blinding headlights, when she opened her eyes again, everything before her no longer belonged to the old world. A voice whispered in her ear, awakening her from her slumber. "This is Buso." "Yes, sir," came a reply. As she opened her eyes, still hazy, she was surprised to find herself in a cradle, not a hospital. Standing before her was an older man, a maid by his side. The man spoke. "She looks just like her mother. It would have been better if the child resembled her father more." Little Tybe widened her eyes, staring in confusion at the strangers before her, speaking in a language she didn't understand. Who were these people? Was this a dream? When a middle-aged man finished his sentence, the butler standing behind him lowered his head and replied, "You never loved him when he was alive." The middle-aged man didn't argue, but covered his face and responded, "That's right, he was my son after all. When I learned she was having a granddaughter, I wondered how ugly she would be." But while everyone was talking, little Tybe was busy marveling at her surroundings, gazing up at the luxurious ceiling, reaching out with her small, lotus-like hands to touch the toys hanging before her. Tybe couldn't help but exclaim, "Wow, even in a dream, it's so realistic." Looking at the elegant and luxurious scene before her, Tybe gradually accepted an unbelievable fact. She had truly been reborn and into such a wealthy family. Tybe had barely had time to rejoice in her affluent family when she became aware of her precarious position through the adults' conversation. Even though she was rich, her parents had died after her birth, and the thorny path ahead was clear. The adults' conversation continued to reach Tybe's small ears. But didn't the young master and his wife leave behind the child of prophecy? Hearing this, Tybe suddenly felt puzzled. Child of prophecy? This girl was born to save the empire. It's an honor for everyone. The Gavlin family name will shine forever. Tybe asked in confusion, "What's going on?" The prophecy says that this year, a girl who inherits the Gavlin bloodline will save the empire from peril. Tybe widened her eyes, looking at this world in shock, realizing that she had been reincarnated as a special being destined to fulfill a prophecy. Thus, Tybe's growth was particularly challenging as the saintess and savior of the empire. From practicing swordsmanship to learning the official language, foreign languages, and the language of the nobility. There were many other lessons, such as how to walk gracefully, turn slowly, and so on. Phew, isn't this too much? Of course, I've been reincarnated, but at this age, just eating well is enough to be loved. Tybe thought to herself while practicing etiquette with her tutor. Naturally, her distraction was immediately noticed. The tutor clapped loudly, bringing Tybe back to her senses. "Miss, you need to focus." Tybe struggled to follow the standard movements of the nobility, thinking, she must be forcing me to study like this because of grandfather's pressure. This is clearly child abuse. Meanwhile, the antique collector and tutor continued to diligently torment Tybe. Good, let's try again. After living like this for a few years, Tybe suddenly felt something was strange. Her life seemed oddly familiar, as if she had seen it somewhere before. A thought suddenly flashed through Tybe's mind, as if she remembered a plot similar to the story of taming the monster flower. But my life is more like that of the villain. Tybe had been reborn for 6 years, and if everything followed the plot of the novel, she would die by execution. Oh my God, the thought of it made 6-year-old Tybe want to faint on the spot, faced with such a dark future. Only now did Tybe realize that this was a novel's world. What had she been striving for all this time? For some prophecy? In fact, the prophecy wasn't entirely wrong. It was just that the girl who inherited the bloodline, the true saintess, was the daughter of a distant relative of the Gavlin clan and also the protagonist of this novel. Miss Etienne, the carriage is ready. The door opened and the maid appeared. Tybe asked, "How long until the appointed time?" "There's still plenty of time," the maid replied respectfully. Dressed in a beautiful and luxurious gown, Tybe, ready to go, told her maid, "Please inform them that I'll be there shortly." Memories of her past life flooded back, leaving Tybe feeling exhausted. She had been pushed to this extent since she was a child, and she was truly curious if this was how the child of prophecy was supposed to be, just because she was favored by the gods. I never imagined that the position I worked my whole life to achieve would be so easily taken away. What would I do if I didn't have the memories of my past life? I would definitely go crazy. The Tybe in Taming the Monster Flower didn't bully Daisy at first, but she was ridiculed as a liar and a villain. In the end, she fell into darkness and committed evil deeds. But that was the Tybe in the novel, not me. Tybe smiled confidently. Tybe walked toward the carriage and said to the coachman, "Take me to the cafe I usually go to, and don't wait for me." Before Tybe finished speaking, the attentive coachman understood and handed Tybe a newspaper. "Do you mean this newspaper, miss? I've already prepared it." Tybe thanked the coachman and sat in the carriage, lost in thought. If the position of saintess wasn't hers, then it was something to be grateful for. Tybe gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and said, "Let's go." Tybe made up her mind. "I'm going to live my own life." To achieve this goal, she put in a lot of effort. Even when the nobles caused her trouble or spread baseless rumors, Tybe ignored them. No matter what, she would live this way. This was already a success, a life she'd built on her own. Tybe would do good deeds and walk a path strewn with flowers. Sitting in the swaying carriage on her way to the meeting place, Tybe happily thought the difficult days were over and her future would be filled with flowers. But when Tybe read the contents of the newspaper, these thoughts were instantly shattered. These supporting characters, destined to die at Tybe's hands, were now dying one after another. All of these people had ridiculed Tybe before. Tybe felt confused, not knowing why this was happening, why these people kept dying. I didn't kill them, what went wrong? The flower-filled life I yearned for. Everything crumbled in an instant. This shocking news almost made Tybe's soul leave her body. On the way, Tybe kept asking herself, what went wrong? Let's think carefully again. Everything went according to plan, because we planned to live a good life. Everything went quite smoothly until last month when Daisy was revealed as the true saintess. The main plot of Taming the Monster Flower begins with a hunting competition organized by the royal family, where many nobles gather. Monsters suddenly appear, and everyone panics and runs around. Due to the sudden appearance of the monsters, the situation gradually spirals out of control. The air is filled with screams. Monsters! Help! The monster, as big as a building, stunned everyone. Just like in the original story, Daisy tamed the ferocious beast. Under her hand and care, a raging monster turned into a docile, large dog. Is everyone all right? Daisy asked with concern. This was the moment when the female protagonist was revealed as the true saintess of the prophecy. Daisy continued to maintain a holy posture, seemingly surprised that the usually quiet lakeside had become so noisy. It's calm now, everything's all right. Everyone was in disbelief and shock at what had just happened. Cheers and praises were endless. A monster like that, it would take elite knights to defeat it. How could she tame it so easily? The whispers and gossip slowly turned in another direction. Could it be that the saintess of the prophecy is not Miss Gavlin, but Miss Daisy? Has she been pretending to be the saintess, lying all along? The public began to discuss fervently. Thinking back, Miss Gavlin and Miss Daisy are the same age. I'm sure the saintess mentioned in the prophecy is Miss Daisy. Everyone started to chime in. Yeah, Princess Tybe has never shown her power. So what should Princess Tybe do now? Watching the endless gossip about herself, Tybe remained silent. Tybe knew that everything would happen this way. Even though she had known since childhood that she was the saintess of the prophecy, all of this made her feel truly alone, and now she had become useless. This was why the Tybe in the original story struggled so much. After all, she just wanted recognition for her worth. But for her, the situation was different now. She had no intention of foolishly jumping into that mud pit. Seeing Tybe lost in thought, another wave of whispers arose. People murmured, is she thinking of how to defend herself? That's impossible. Everyone saw what Daisy did, right? After all, who would listen to a fake saintess? Tybe walked up to Daisy and spoke sincerely. She called out the saintess's name. You're really good at this. Tybe held Daisy's hand, encouraging her in a friendly and intimate way. Her next words shocked everyone, including Daisy. No one expected her to say, thanks to you, we're all saved. Your abilities are truly remarkable. With a smile on her face and a relaxed expression, Tybe softly said, the one destined in the prophecy might just be her. Tybe's reaction was beyond everyone's expectations. People thought she would fight back, but she admitted it readily. At this moment, Tybe felt incredibly relieved. It's even more boisterous than I imagined. Well, there's no benefit in being trapped forever. After clearly expressing her viewpoint, Tybe didn't linger. With the poise of a noble, she bid farewell to everyone. Well then, I'll take my leave. Everything happened so fast that Daisy didn't have time to say anything. At that moment, Tybe thought to herself, yes, it's perfect to end it like this. But things were never that simple. Although everything seemed fine up to that point, that was why she decided to give up the title of saintess and start a new life. Unexpectedly, all those who had argued with Tybe died one after another. Holding the newspaper, Tybe really wanted to curse. This is definitely the kind of situation that could easily be mistaken for murder. Oh my God, my flower path, my life, what's going on? A deep, warm voice suddenly broke through Tybe's thoughts. These thoughts made her forget reality, immersed in the contents of the newspaper, making her forget she was sitting with him. Tybe. The man called her name gently, sincerely expressing, if there's anything I can help with, I'll do anything. If you have any worries, please tell me. It was Ethan, Samantha Tybe's fiancé, and the villain in Taming the Monster Flower. Tybe quickly folded the newspaper and comforted him. Oh, it's nothing serious, Ethan. He seemed a little too worried. Wasn't he? Tybe sighed softly and said, I was just too focused on the newspaper, I'm sorry. As she spoke, she silently thought about him, a man, Ethan, almost foolishly kind, only seeing the good in people. Ethan smiled gently and replied, "You don't need to apologize. I usually read the newspaper while drinking tea too." Tybe continued to marvel inwardly. He was Ethan, kind and gentle, unable to betray Tybe. In the original story, he stayed by Tybe's side until the very end, his fate being used and then dying. At this moment, Ethan was still comforting her, saying, "I'm fine, Ethan, relax." In the original work, after Tybe learned that Daisy was the true saintess, she plotted to kill the protagonist. What? Daisy is going to light the torch? That won't do. I can't let everything be taken away. A person sought out her fiancé, feigning pity to use him. So I absolutely cannot bear to see her, and not me, appear at the Kentucky torch ceremony. Please make her sick that day. A person handed Ethan a small bottle of poison and persuaded him, "Please secretly mix this into Tybe's tea." Tybe's fiancé was truly softened by her tears. However, trusting Tybe's words and giving the medicine to Daisy went against his morals. Ethan didn't hesitate to try the medicine himself, disregarding his own safety. Surprisingly, just as Tybe had said, he only fell ill for 3 days before waking up. This made him happy, thinking she's really not a bad person at heart. Ethan believed Tybe's words and mixed the potion into Tybe's tea. But what he didn't expect was that when this potion mixed with black tea, it would turn into a deadly poison. Saintess Daisy fell into a deep coma due to the poisoning, causing worry for everyone. As for Tybe's fiancé, Ethan, he was imprisoned for the suspected murder of the saintess. Even knowing he'd been deceived, Ethan still protected his fiancée. Tybe remembered when she read the novel, she'd wondered why they were so foolish, why anyone would be as naive as Ethan. Yet, now that she'd met him, she realized he wasn't foolish at all. He was just kind, innocent, even dutiful, not to mention incredibly handsome. She felt a pang of regret for thinking that way before. Returning to their conversation, Ethan continued, "But this is the first time you've reacted this way to a newspaper. May I ask which newspaper made you so worried?" Ethan wore an expression of aggrieved helplessness. "It's truly upsetting to see you suffer like this." Seeing Ethan's concern for her, Tybe couldn't help but squint one eye at the radiance he exuded. It was too dazzling. Tybe looked at Ethan and thought, if this isn't an angel, then who is? Not wanting Ethan to worry further, she quickly reassured him, "It's really nothing special." Then she thought to herself, "I can't even believe this is my fiancé. How could someone as gentle and pure as Ethan exist in this world?" Then, Tybe placed the newspaper on the table, offering it to Ethan, explaining that the reason for her unusual behavior was because of this newspaper. Ethan picked up the newspaper and read it carefully. Beside him, Tybe added, "Marquis Manhattan died in a carriage accident. As you can see, this accident is a bit strange. It was an accident caused by a broken carriage wheel, but something feels off here." Ethan then said, "Marquis Manhattan's carriage was only made a week ago. This shouldn't have happened." Tybe continued to express her point, saying that many people believed it wasn't a carriage accident, but rather a deliberate act. Ethan answered in a low voice, a dark, negative energy emanating from him. "Everyone thinks you're the culprit. The victims of all the recent accidents had argued with you. They think you're the murderer. What kind of irresponsible article is this?" Tybe, seemingly oblivious to his change in demeanor, continued, "On the surface, it just looks like a coincidence." Ethan defended her. "Even if I did argue with the victims, wasn't it them who started it?" Recalling the previous arguments with the victims, Tybe realized what they said was completely true. Like when Marquis Manhattan provoked Tybe, he mocked and pretended to be the prophesied child, the saintess. In the end, if he wasn't a fraud, then what was he? At this moment, if she took her fiancé to the opera, it would be unbearable. And the lady who insulted Tybe at the store, and Marquis Manhattan causing a scene at the theater. All of them had met with misfortune. Despite this, Tybe wasn't happy at all, as she was being accused of murder, even though she hadn't done anything. But talking to Ethan also made Tybe feel slightly more comfortable. Being with him was truly calming. After it was revealed that Daisy was the true saintess, Tybe had been completely isolated. On the surface, they would greet her, but that was all. Everyone had turned their backs on her, except for him. It was a complicated feeling indeed. Ethan, upon seeing the newspaper, believed in Tybe's innocence. Without a doubt, watching Ethan seriously holding the newspaper and reading, a silent gratitude welled up in Tybe's heart. Seeing that Ethan's face was still tense and full of worry, Tybe comforted him, saying, "It's okay, Ethan. You truly are innocent. The truth will come out eventually. Relax your expression." Hearing this, Ethan still couldn't calm down. He really cared about this matter. He knew, but he couldn't help but care about the humiliation you're enduring. His face was still full of worry. Seeing Ethan like this, Tybe was deeply moved, and Ethan's eyes were like a puppy's now. He kept looking at me with those innocent eyes. This is against the rules, you know? Noticing that words alone couldn't comfort Ethan, Tybe reached out and gently cupped his face, speaking in a soft, soothing tone. "Ethan, I'm all right, Ethan. You don't have to worry." Ethan leaned closer and grasped the arm that comforted him, replying with a hint of sorrow. "Tybe always says she's all right, but I'm truly worried that I'll miss something bad happening." "I know. Thank you for your concern, but everything really is all right." Ethan still seemed uneasy and asked again, "Are you truly all right?" Tybe replied confidently, "Of course, because I think I'll catch the culprit committing these acts." Tybe said this with a confident and determined expression. That's right. The reason Tybe was determined to catch the culprit was because this was the biggest obstacle to achieving her goal. Tybe pondered, "Those I never killed are dying, and now I'm suspected of being the murderer. Things are unfolding just like the original story." There was no answer but to exile herself. Tybe decided to stop confronting it and immediately considered exile. While it seemed a bit extreme, after experiencing this reality, it was her best option at the moment. A few days ago, because of thinking about these things, she tossed and turned, unable to sleep all night. She began to organize her thoughts. First, although she was the villain in the original work, this was too harsh for the current Tybe. She wasn't always causing trouble and hindering Daisy like the Tybe in the original story. She simply and gently returned the title of saintess to Daisy. Tybe held her head in her hands in despair, thinking if she did that and left quietly, at least no one would stand in front of her and accuse her. But the result was far from what she imagined. Instead, she was further alienated by everyone. Although she wasn't as cruel as the original Tybe, now somewhat gently humorous, the situation was still terrible. It wasn't that she hadn't explained about the prophecy. If people didn't treat her as the saintess, she wouldn't kill everyone. When she met people, she often joked, raising her hand and shouting, "The fake saintess is here." But why did everyone blame and hate her? Ethan was too much. What was the reason for her to be treated like this? Secondly, if she continued to be labeled a murderer, her long-term plans would be disrupted. Considering the current situation, the day Tybe was abandoned by her family wasn't far off. Being considered the heir to the saintess was actually a sham, and there were even rumors that she was a murderer. Tybe knew that a family like the Gavlins, who valued honor, would never let her go. They would likely rush her into marriage to seize the Gavlin mansion. Tybe's expression turned grim as she thought. So this will be different from the original. I might survive, but that's all. Clearly, I'll be confined to the mansion for the rest of my life. Like a fish in a bowl, a bird in a cage, unable to be free. However, what crime did I commit? Thinking of her innocent, gentle, and kind fiancé, Tybe felt that if things continued like this, it would be a real loss for him. Originally, this engagement was decided by the elders of Duke Samantha, and since things had come to this, she didn't want to leave everything to Ethan to deal with. Tybe also had different plans for her life. She considered moving to another place to live, a place where she could fully utilize her abilities and live freely. Was there such a place? She spent a lot of time thinking, and finally, Tybe found such a place, an ideal place to live her own life. That was the Magic Empire, Sagi. It was a small empire sandwiched between the Gavlin Empire on the continent, an empire that was more like a city than its name. This place was known for only accepting a small number of people who could use magic as imperial citizens, never accepting anyone else. In fact, Tybe could use her power, but no one believed her, so she was called a fraud. Of course, this power wasn't divine. It was simply magic. Divine power and magical power both shared a common characteristic. They used mana. Depending on the nature of the mana, the user could move it according to their will. The only difference was that magical power was used through magical techniques, while divine power was not. But few people could use mana. The inhabitants of this continent hardly understood magic or divine power. So in the original story, when Tybe accidentally displayed her magical power, she believed it was divine power because she was the saintess. Because she could use magical power, she refused to believe she wasn't the true saintess. But thanks to this, I learned in the original story that Tybee mistakenly believed it was divine power, so she secretly continued to explore and research. Heaven helps those who help themselves, and eventually, her efforts paid off. Tybee learned how to use magic as if it were divine power. Although the Tybee in the original work abused this ability to bully Daisy and died without truly understanding her real power, things were different for her now. Now she understood this power well and understood its value. So, since then, she had been honing her magical abilities. According to the novel's contents, Tybee constantly strived to learn. With her abilities, she believed she would be warmly welcomed by the Sagi Empire. Although those who came to the Sagi Empire would be cut off from the outside world, giving up their status and relationships. Think about it. For someone like her who was being stoned by everyone in the Empire and about to be kicked out of her family, weren't these the best conditions? She thought it was truly a brilliant plan, a perfect solution she had come up with that fit the current situation. But at that time, Tybee hadn't considered the possibility of being unfairly denied entry like this. While making her plans, she had overlooked one important detail: the final condition for entering the Sagi Empire. The rule was that all those exiled should not be under suspicion for any criminal accusations. Tybee frowned in frustration, thinking, I can't let this plan fail because of a murder I didn't even commit. I'm going to catch that culprit myself. Relax, look at Ethan's face, calm down. Look at my handsome fiancé's face to heal myself. The conversation between Tybee and Ethan continued. Ethan pulled her out of her chaotic thoughts again, asking, will you catch the culprit? If there really is a culprit, it's indeed dangerous for me to catch him. It was a common concern, but there was something unusual in Ethan's eyes. Unaware of this, Tybee comforted him. Ethan, are you worried about me? Ethan calmly replied, of course. Tybee was deeply moved, thinking he was indeed a kind person. She continued, Ethan, you don't have to worry about that. My swordsmanship is also quite good. Ethan, but even so, I can't help but worry. No matter how skilled you are, you could still get hurt. Tybee, I'm not only searching alone, but I'm also getting a lot of help. After all, I'm a member of the Gavlin family. Worry was still etched on Ethan's face. You don't think they're all on your side, do you? That's what you said at the last meeting. This time Tybee was a little bewildered. Did I really say that? I don't really remember. Usually, he doesn't say anything, just listens quietly. So he really noticed what I said and has a good memory. As Tybee fell into thought, unsure how to justify such a moment, Ethan continued speaking. His words were laced with psychological manipulation, suggesting that their deaths might just be a coincidence. Tybee just laughed and said, if an incident happened every 2 days, maybe it would be understandable, but happening every day like this, it's hard not to be suspicious. Ethan seemed to understand. Oh, I see. He had an expression on his face, as if he had learned something truly useful. Tybee continued, but now her expression darkened. So you can't just put down this newspaper and start cursing. If you weren't directly involved, of course, that would still raise suspicion. Ethan, wow, you're so kind, but is Tybee showing me her childish side right now? Honestly, I hope this newspaper company goes bankrupt right away. If that happens, she crumpled the newspaper into a ball and threw it directly onto the floor. Hearing Tybee say this, Ethan chuckled softly. She continued, I heard that this newspaper company is deeply in debt. If things continue like this, it might go bankrupt. A few days later, if you hear that the newspaper company has gone bankrupt, it won't be too surprising. Tybee was quite surprised by this news, unaware of the actual situation. In fact, this newspaper company was also the one that harshly reported the monster flower's evil deeds, and people rumored that Tybee was the one who caused the newspaper company to go bankrupt. But now I knew that it truly was because it was heavily in debt. Although I was annoyed that such rumors were spreading even though I hadn't done anything, it was still quite refreshing to discover this. Ethan told Tybee, that news seems quite interesting. She replied, of course it's interesting. It had better go bankrupt. He laughed, but the smile seemed a little sinister. He replied softly, as if it had nothing to do with him. Ethan's face darkened, his words carrying an underlying meaning. Just as Tybee had hoped, Tybee ended the topic. So now, we just need to catch the culprit. It seemed a bit unfair to ask again. Are you really going to catch the culprit? Tybee replied, when have I ever joked? Seeing Ethan's worried face again, Tybee comforted him. I know you're worried about me, but I have to clear this accusation. Besides, he hasn't killed many important figures yet, but he will soon. Her expression became more serious. Actually, that's the biggest problem. If we follow the current order, the next one will be young Master Lunette, Count Lunette's son. Ever since he had failed to charm Tybe and felt insecure around Ethan, he had picked a fight with her every time they met. But the real problem wasn't him, but his father, Count Lunette. Count Lunette had betrayed her, and that was the beginning of all the problems. Count Lunette was one of the main figures in the border resistance against the monsters, and his influence was truly significant. The Gavlin family abandoning Tybe was the main reason that led to her death. If young Master Lunette died, in that case, Count Lunette would betray her before the truth was revealed. If that happened, she would be in deep trouble. She couldn't let things get to that point. Ethan, with a sad, puppy-like expression, hesitantly asked Tybe, "Then, wouldn't their deaths make you happy?" Tybe didn't hesitate to share her true feelings with Ethan. "Honestly, I feel happy too. I feel comfortable." Ethan, with a curious expression, asked, "Tybe, can you tell me what the problem is?" "The problem is that those arrows will come back to you. Everyone thinks you're the culprit, that you're the one causing those murders." Ethan said innocently, "That's really confusing, isn't it? I thought it had nothing to do with you." Tybe explained, "It's probably because someone dies every day." Ethan's face suddenly looked like he had just grasped a revolutionary idea. Every day, Tybe. "Yes, someone dies every day, that's the problem." Tybe replied, "Yes, dying every day like that is really suspicious. If it were an accident, it should only happen occasionally. That way, it wouldn't be related to me." Ethan's face and tone were once again shrouded in darkness. Ethan asked, "Then, if their deaths have nothing to do with me, I can be happy, right?" "Yes, you'll feel more at ease." Although I found Ethan's question strange, I didn't pay much attention to it and answered honestly. Compared to his satisfied expression when he said he would make a note of this. Although she didn't know what he was making a note of, Tybe was happy. Seeing Ethan's happy face, Tybe put his worries aside. "It's probably fine. Ethan hasn't been this happy in a long time." Ethan continued, "But I'm still not comfortable letting you catch the culprit alone. I'll catch the culprit with you." At this moment, Tybe realized what Ethan had said earlier. It turned out he was pointing this out to help her. Tybe happily thanked Ethan, unaware that today's light-hearted thought was the beginning of all the problems. At that moment, Tybe didn't think for a second. Tybe didn't suspect at all, because to her, he was a very kind and honest person. The biggest reason lay with Tybe. She was truly indifferent to the people around her. She was someone always surrounded by crowds, but he knew she was actually tired of all the attention. So she closed her eyes and covered her ears, perhaps without even realizing it herself. Ethan thought to himself. By then, their meeting had come to an end. Tybe stood up and bid him farewell. "Ethan, I was very happy today." Ethan, holding her hand, said, "If you're happy, I'm happy too. Thank you for always being so good to me." But now Ethan was no longer happy, because it was that expression again, a sad and lonely one. "What made you so sad?" Ethan truly wanted to know why she always had that expression, why sometimes she acted as if she were going to leave forever. If she didn't want to say, he wouldn't ask. Recently, he had also figured out the reason. As soon as he saw Tybe's carriage, his expression completely changed to anger. "Those damn things. How dare they touch my noble fiancé?" Recalling the scene of dealing with those scum, that trash was too noisy even in death, always shouting, "Duke, I was wrong. No, I was wrong. It was just a joke. If you want, I'll apologize to the lady personally." They used to mock her every chance they got, and now it was truly sickening to see them begging for mercy. "Please spare me, sir. If you let me go, I swear I'll never appear before her again." Stepping into his own carriage, Ethan said to the confidant waiting for him, "I should have killed him more painfully." The green-haired guard greeted him. "You're back, Duke." His name was L.A. He asked Ethan if the meeting had been pleasant. "Just shut your eyes and answer. The question you're asking is too obvious." L.A. said, "That's right. These days you've been very concerned about this because of your fiancé. If you've already started doing something, you must have many tasks to handle. So, are you going back to inherit the title?" Now looking gloomy, he replied, "No, you seem less experienced than I thought. I still need to handle a few issues." L.A. replied dejectedly, "Overtime again today? Haha, how amusing." Holding a newspaper, the expression on Ethan's face was full of murderous intent, like a demon. "I have to go meet some people to collect debts." A few days later, the Harrington newspaper company was exposed for colluding with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. It was all due to Harrington's massive debt. Reading the news in the newspaper, Tybe learned that the editorial department had gone bankrupt. Recently, Tybe's maid spoke up. "Are you talking about the Harrington publishing house?" I was really surprised too. Tybe empathized, sighing silently. Although I thought it would be good if they went bankrupt, I didn't think it would actually happen. Ethan quickly said, a major newspaper company went bankrupt in a single morning. Who knew the editor-in-chief owed so much gambling debt? There were rumors that they were doing well, but everyone was completely fooled. The maid asked Tybe, do you know anything about it? Tybe replied, I heard it's true. I only heard a little. Harrington owed a lot of money. The maid overthought the secrets between nobles. Seeing the strange expression on the maid's face, he guessed she must have misunderstood something again. The maid continued, you're going to meet Duke Ethan. This story is a bit strange. Tybe felt uneasy, but was fine. Her face flushed red from lying. It's okay because I saw Ethan today was my lie. But if she didn't do this, she wouldn't be allowed to go out. When things happened, her grandfather said, stay out of the public eye for a while. You know public opinion is against you. Ethan said, try not to go out often for the time being. It's better for you. Tybe was forbidden to go out amidst the monster flower incident. Although it wasn't stated directly, she knew that someone like her, rumored to be a murderer, going out wouldn't bring any benefits. But there was one exception, and that was meeting with Ethan. I'll let you see your fiancé, but nothing else is allowed. Tybe told him, I have a dinner date with Ethan next week. I'll go and come back. All right, as you wish, but remember to take your servants. Although grandfather seemed to agree easily, in reality, bringing servants was just a way to keep an eye on her. Every move Tybe made was closely monitored. No matter how difficult, she had to go out that day, because it was an important one. It was the day young Master Lunette died at the black market auction in the original story. Tybe was determined to prevent this, no matter the cost. Since meeting with Ethan 2 weeks prior, Tybe had begun gathering information. To prevent the murder, she called Ethan, pointing to a ring in the newspaper and saying, this advertisement is a bit strange, isn't it? Ethan didn't understand. What do you mean? She explained. It's a ring called Cat's Desire, a combination of letters unrelated to the advertisement. Ethan suggested to Tybe, can you decode it? This encryption isn't too difficult. Then he kindly answered her question, saying, if you write these letters together and break them down. Cursed Ring seems to be the name of this product, as it can't be advertised openly and even needs encryption. This is an advertisement for the black market. She thought to herself, the Cursed Ring, this must be where young Master Lunette was murdered in the original story. In the novel, young Master Lunette was killed by Tybe at a black market auction. His death was described in detail, as it was the main event that led to Tybe getting into significant trouble. The black market was where the Cursed Ring became the prize. She wouldn't kill young Master Lunette, but given the current circumstances, the murderer would appear at this auction. In the original text, Tybe thought that was the right place to kill Lunette. Ethan thought there was no need to go there, so they deciphered it themselves. I'm really sorry. Arriving, it was a huge space with all the auction participants wearing hoods. Now the auction will begin. She was able to get here without her servant's supervision because she had given sleeping pills to her servants and overseers. Witnessing this scene, Tybe thought to herself that the place was too calm, unlike a crime scene. Seeing Tybe lost in thought, the person sitting next to her asked, "What's wrong, miss?" She calmly replied, "I feel like nothing's going to happen." "That's usually the case," said Malin, the leader of the Zodiac gang. He continued, "In my opinion, nothing will happen today." The heroine in Flower the Monster received a lot of support, the most frequent of which came from the Zodiac, an intelligence group disguised as a coffee shop. In the original story, there was no connection between Tybe and the Zodiac. The position of this false saint brought many dangers. "Ethan, I need power." Tybe approached them before Daisy formed a close relationship with the Zodiac, naturally becoming the Zodiac's master. So now they were no longer Daisy's subordinates, but Tybe's. The person on the stage was still enthusiastically promoting the product. The product was a container holding a mist soul, but Tybe wasn't very interested and kept thinking. Knowing the original story and not taking action was the real foolishness. Malin knew all of Tybe's plans, as he was her aide, and that's how she got the black market invitation. Malin seemed interested in the auction proceedings. He eagerly told Tybe, "Miss, there's probably nothing special. You don't need to supervise anymore. Why not buy something?" But Tybe firmly refused. No, absolutely not. The lady herself was attracted by a magic book. Well, she was a little distracted at the time and ended up buying it for 3 million gold coins. Tybe argued, "What else could we do? It's almost impossible to find any magic books in the Empire. If even you didn't notice, what could we do? Our goal wasn't to buy anything in the first place." Malin said, "I understand what you mean, but but I don't quite believe it. How could he kill someone in such a crowded auction house, especially the son of a count? Malin had a point. Normally, no one would kill someone in a place like this, but surprisingly, Tybe had done so in the original story. Holding a bag of money, Tybe said, "Why don't you believe it?" Malin's eyes lit up, and he quickly responded, "I'll keep a close watch." Indeed, money talks. Clutching the money, Malin said excitedly, "So, I'll go to young Master Lunette's place and tail him discreetly. It's a bit far. The last item for today's auction has already been put up. Perhaps today will pass peacefully." The final item was Man Aishin's cursed ring. Everyone was talking about the ring. That was it, the cursed ring. The gleam of the ring shone directly into her eyes, making her squint. It was probably because of the lighting. Suddenly, a familiar voice called her name, Tybe. Tybe immediately turned around. Ethan stood there. "What are you doing here?" she exclaimed in surprise. Ethan calmly replied, "Yes, it's me. I didn't expect to run into you here." He then calmly sat down next to her, leaving Tybe bewildered and wondering why he was there. She was deeply shocked. How could she be caught by the very person she least wanted to see her here? Did the cursed ring bring misfortune simply by being in the same room? She didn't want to be seen as someone who frequented the black market. "Perhaps you came here secretly, right?" Ethan asked. Still reeling from the shock, Tybe responded mechanically, "Yes, I have some things to verify." Then, whispering in Ethan's ear, she added, "To be honest, this is my first time at the black market." She emphasized, "It's true." Although Ethan didn't understand why she was whispering, and despite the difficulty in understanding her hushed words, he whispered back, saying he was glad to be with her for her first time. "Since it's my first time too, I was a bit nervous, but seeing your familiar face calmed me down." At that moment, the image of Ethan in her mind was like an angel with pure white wings on his back. Even if he said pigs could climb trees, she would believe him. While worried about being caught by Ethan, if it was him, he would likely keep silent more than anyone else. Her biggest concern now was Ethan's safety. "Why are you here? This is a place where murder could happen. You never know, so you could be in danger." Ethan hesitated, seemingly trying to find an excuse for his presence without making Tybe suspicious. "Didn't you see the advertisement for this auction last time? Since you seemed interested in that ring, I enthusiastically made up a story. She had been through a lot of trouble recently, so he wanted to give her a gift to comfort her. Perhaps he did want to give her a gift, but not this ring. It was probably something like someone's head, even though she was trying her best to prevent such a thing from happening." Tybe was deeply moved, realizing he had come all this way for her, to give her a special gift. He was always thinking of her. How could he say that when she wasn't interested in the ring at all? "I'm grateful for your concern, Ethan, but how did you find me without seeing my face?" "I heard your voice. I found you just by hearing your voice." "Tybe, we did argue a bit loudly when we bought the buckle pants, but you recognized me just from that? You're amazing, Ethan." Ethan took the opportunity to confess. "No matter where you are, I can find you." Tybe started to respond coldly. Anywhere. She was completely at a disadvantage in front of Ethan. She wondered, could he still find her if she didn't speak? Ethan confidently replied, "Of course, because the feeling of touching you is so special." Tybe realized with surprise that she had been captivated by his whispers and hadn't even noticed the auction was still going on. "Ethan," she told him to stop whispering. "Wait a minute, the auction. I haven't been paying attention to it since I met Ethan. Where did Lunette's lot go? Is everything all right?" By the time Tybe realized it, the auction had ended, and the ring had been sold for 320 million gold coins. The killer's name would end in Y. The venue was now buzzing with noise. The perfect opportunity to slip away unnoticed. If everything went according to plan, she would stay until the situation was resolved. But if things continued like this, Ethan might get involved. Ethan still seemed relaxed. Tybe overheard that they were accepting gifts nearby. Ethan had come to this place because of her, the woman engaged to him for political reasons. They agreed to go and collect the gifts together. Meanwhile, Tybe hardened her resolve. Ethan wouldn't be harmed, not if she could help it. "I don't want to put Ethan in danger," she thought, "but I won't let this continue forever either." She signaled to Malin with her eyes to follow and stop the killer. No words were needed. Malin understood the command. He smirked. Why did his head ache so much? She wanted to stop the killer, right? Leave it to him, this kind of thing. With that thought, Malin immediately melted into the shadows. "You can count on me. This is my specialty." Tybe, smug and confident, entrusted the task to Malin, knowing that once in his hands, there would be no problems. Now, she turned her attention to the young man standing beside her. Ethan had come all this way for her, so she would help him leave this place. Tybe didn't return to the mansion until late that night, utterly exhausted, truly drained. She leaned wearily against the wall, walking back to her room. I didn't even do anything particularly strenuous. I should have gone back right away. A boring day for me, she summarized. Supervised the servants' nap time, snuck off to the black market, accidentally prevented a murder, unfortunately ran into my fiancé at the scene of the crime, then went on a date and finally returned home safely. Actually, I was planning to go home right away, but when he said that, how could I just leave him? It would be a shame to part ways now, after just meeting outside. Let's have a meal together. Tybe hadn't known how to respond. Ethan, she had decided to stay and have some dessert after a long day. Tybe really wanted a rest, a bath, and then sleep, she thought. Suddenly, she stopped in her tracks. She heard a shout. Heavens, it's all because of Gavlin. The princess's existence will ruin Gavlin's honor. Hearing this, Tybe peeked inside curiously. It was truly noisy. Taking a closer look at the people in the room, Tybe understood immediately. She had wondered why it was so loud. It seemed those people were at it again. The man turned out to be an elder of the Gavlin clan. Tybe began to recall the details from the story. I've carried a burden from them ever since I became the saintess. I've experienced countless assassination attempts since I was young. Although they weren't good to me, it was different for Edion in the original story. They were the mediators who helped Edion integrate into Gavlin. Whenever Edion faced difficulties, they would lend her the power of their clan. Tybe watched them argue silently, understanding perfectly what was happening. To uphold our honor, we must give Gavlin to Edion. Always a burden to bear, and now she's become useless and is about to be kicked out, she thought. But her face remained impassive, betraying no emotion. I don't want to hear any more. With that thought, she decisively ripped the pearl bracelet from her wrist. Hearing the sound, the group abruptly stopped and looked towards the doorway. "Oh, my lady!" The pearls clattered against the floor. Her grandfather finally spoke. "It seems my granddaughter has returned." He struck the floor sharply with his cane. Those who speak without regard for time or place, even if the girl has heard everything, there's nothing more to be said. He spoke menacingly. "Get out of my mansion immediately," his eyes suddenly turning fearsome, "or we'll cut out your tongues." The group, shocked by his words, stood there in disbelief. They scurried away, stammering, It's late now, so we request to leave. We hope to receive a clear answer next time." Someone clicked their tongue in dissatisfaction. Tybe watched them leave in silence. Hopefully, they won't show up again for a while, she thought. Her grandfather spoke. "When did you arrive?" Tybe gracefully lifted her skirt and curtsied respectfully. "I've returned, grandfather." Her grandfather hesitated, about to ask something, but then immediately dismissed the thought. "No, it's too late now." "Where are you going?" he asked. Tybe replied, "I had an appointment with Ethan. He wanted to escort me home, so I sent the carriage back first." She glanced down at her wrist, feigning sadness. "My bracelet suddenly broke, so I suppose the sound interrupted everyone's conversation." But her grandfather didn't blame her. "I was planning to send them away anyway." He hesitated, then asked, "Tybe, did you hear everything, including the recent matters?" Seeing her grandfather's demeanor, Tybe sensed something very different, something genuinely new. She said to him, "Grandfather, you don't have to worry about me." But he immediately denied it. "No, it's not because I care about you." She sighed inwardly. "Oh, you're too much," he replied coldly. "So go and rest." Indeed, he values the family's honor more than his own blood relatives. I know what kind of man he is. As the maids helped Tybe change her clothes, she remained troubled, wondering why someone like him wouldn't accept Edion into the family. For what reason? He had that look on his face again. Tybe's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, replaying the past, even though she knew she had to let go of these feelings. "Because I'm leaving." But she couldn't help but cling to hope during those weary days, whenever she heard those affectionate words. The day her tutor sincerely praised her, even on her birthday, which she herself had forgotten. A small, handmade pincushion from a servant. She had once made up her mind, looking forward to everyone's kindness. If only young Master Lunette, when expressing those feelings, hadn't insulted me because of his insecurity towards Ethan. I wish my tutors hadn't always praised me, wanting a saintly student and the reputation that came with it. I wish that maid hadn't given me that pincushion, or that the poison needle hadn't been hidden inside. If so, things would have been different. Tormented by endless thoughts, Tybe lay wearily in bed. Stop thinking. As if all her strength had been drained, her body felt heavy with exhaustion. She yawned, but fought against sleep. Not yet. It seemed she still had much to do, like receiving Malon's report about what had transpired, and reading the magic book. I also have to write a letter to Ethan. But before she could do any of it, sleep claimed her. Putting the letter aside in her mind, she thought, maybe skipping a day won't hurt. At the Savato estate, L.A. asked, "My lord, why do you keep staring at that piece of paper?" Ethan, still holding the paper, said anxiously, "It's nothing special. Every time she sees me, she sends a letter saying she's arrived home safely, but there's been no contact today." L.A. exclaimed in surprise. "So that paper is the news?" Indeed, the news was a magical item, used by dividing it into separate sheets of paper. If someone wrote their news on one sheet, the same words would appear on all the other sheets. It was an expensive product, equivalent to a year's worth of taxes on an estate, and could be considered a rare luxury. But it still had one drawback. The lines written on that news would disappear after a day. He pointed at the paper, bewildered. "You use that to exchange letters?" "This is the first time I've seen one in person. I heard a single sheet is worth a diamond mine." "Is this what you said you gave to Miss Tybe?" Ethan recalled the moment he gave Tybe the news. "Yes," he replied. Her expression at the time. At that moment, Tybe had been speechless with shock. She had anxiously clutched the paper, demanding a refund. "This hasn't been cut yet, right? It hasn't been touched, right? Please refund this immediately." Ethan had blushed like he was drunk. It was adorable. Ethan drifted into a reverie, and L.A. interrupted, "My lord, in any case, if we don't hear from a young lady who's been sending letters assuring us of her safety, it means she's fallen asleep. So, what were you thinking when you saw and heard me report first?" In the end, Ethan listened to Lane as well. Ethan listened closely. L.A., ecstatic, pulled out a small box. "This was a wise choice. First, I bought the gift as ordered. The winning bid was 320 million gold. As you instructed, I made up my mind to kill him as I left the auction house." L.A.'s expression turned serious. "But there was one person I didn't anticipate. He can control shadows. As far as I know, there's only one person on the entire continent capable of that." Hearing this, he immediately guessed the person's identity. The leader of the Constellation Guild. He'll shroud the incident in shadows. "Ethan, you can't get involved." L.A. replied hesitantly, "Yes, I'm sorry to disappoint you." But Ethan didn't blame him, remaining calm. "So, it's the leader of the Constellation Guild of all people. I understand there's no other way. I don't understand why the Constellation Guild would be involved in this, but I'll investigate later. I have to eliminate the vermin that's disturbing her. But next time, I won't accept failure. It will be a warning to others." Tybe, having slept soundly, had just woken up. When did I fall asleep?" Newly awake, she immediately contacted Malon. "Malon, did young Master Lunette return safely?" Malon replied confidently, "Of course. Who do you think I am?" "And you were right. Someone is targeting young Master Lunette." He recounted the events. "When I was tailing the target, hidden in the shadows, he sensed me and fled. Judging by my keen senses, he's no ordinary person," Tybe surmised. "He seems to be someone who can see through the darkness." In truth, Malon could now control darkness. Darkness didn't just refer to areas covered by shadows, but all types of darkness. This meant few could defeat Malon in the dark. Tybe continued, "If it's someone who can wield that kind of ability, then they could kill the target at any time. But Lunette doesn't seem too interested in the case. Honestly, I think it would be better to let him die. The culprit's actions are rather novel." Tybe responded, "We know." She was worried. Even with the Constellation Guild involved, they still couldn't catch the culprit, meaning the culprit might be someone even more powerful than her. Frustrated, Malon sighed to Lunette. "If only we could figure out the culprit's motive. Why does he keep killing and then leaving?" Lunette guessed. Could he be one of the young lady's fanatical admirers? Tybe laughed. "That's a naive answer." Malon said wryly, "Adian is the protagonist of the prophecy. No one is my fan. It's more believable to say I'm blamed and belittled." Suddenly, she heard a loud commotion downstairs. "Sir, didn't I tell you to go back?" The noise was so loud that even Lunette could hear it. "Hey, miss, it seems something's happening at your place again." Tybe had a bad feeling, curious to find out what was going on. "Ethan," she said to Lunette, "I'll go check and be right back." She descended the stairs, thinking what's going on. He usually doesn't speak up. Tybe froze, unable to believe what her grandfather was saying. "Listen carefully, Miss Carly. Past, present, and future, there's only Tybe." She was bewildered, suddenly wondering why this was happening. Count Carly continued to persuade. "Sir, you must listen to me. What can the princess do for the family now? You know very well. It seems you've misunderstood something. But her grandfather remained firm. I never said I wouldn't protect Miss Adian. Since she comes from the distant Carly family, I will protect Adian accordingly, befitting that lineage. The Count said worriedly, what kind of protection is that? What good is that kind of protection? What good is protecting the saintess in the name of Carly? Do you know the best way to adopt her? As Tybe secretly observed, her grandfather said sternly, Count Carly, the best method you speak of doesn't exist. Tybe, this girl, has been revered her whole life as the child of prophecy and the saintess, but she only learned of it a month ago. Just 1 month, and there are already rumors she's killed someone. Have you considered how she must be feeling? Tybe was bewildered by these words. Why was this happening? He'd never spoken a kind word to her before. So what was this about? He never cared about her anyway. Even if he was considering her now, she had already made her decision, she thought. She shouldn't listen any further. With that, she abruptly turned away, looking out the window. Ah, the day Count Gali visited. That was also Edian's first day in Gali, wasn't it? Since she'd come to this world, so many things had changed compared to the original story. It felt strange. If things had followed the original storyline, she should be talking to Duke Gali right now. Why had everything become like this? It left Tybe deeply perplexed, but she quickly found her direction. Her primary goal was to leave the family. So, should I help her? Thinking this, she immediately went outside and knocked on the carriage door. Could I go out for a moment? Tybe smiled warmly at Edian. Let's talk. Edian was a little flustered. She hadn't expected the saintess to show such an interest in her. Edian had always admired the saintess. She confessed, since I was young, I've heard stories about the young saintess of Gali. How could she be so mature at such a young age? I heard that during the spring crisis, it was she who finally opened the temple safe. Eventually, you two should grow into someone like that. The saintess is truly amazing. Someday, I also want to become an outstanding person like her. Since childhood, the saintess has been my idol. The first time I saw the saintess was at the hunting competition. At that place, a monster suddenly appeared. It roared, startling everyone into a panic. It shouted at them, "Evacuate immediately." The monster roared so loudly, it kept me awake. But no one paid attention to what it said. They always viewed monsters as evil. Where are the knights? Why don't they kill it? Only Edian bravely stood before the monster. No, it's just surprised by the commotion near the lake. If this continues, even the saintess here might be in danger. Seeing young Miss Edian standing alone before the ferocious monster, everyone was incredibly worried, shouting out. It was extremely dangerous, but the young miss gathered her courage and embraced the giant beast, calming it down. Don't be afraid. Calm down. The people around were stunned. Look, Edian calmed it down. She did what even the saintess couldn't. The young miss gently stroked the beast as if it were a small puppy. The surrounding people, witnessing this scene, began to murmur amongst themselves. Isn't Edian a distant relative of the saintess? That means Gali blood flows through her veins as well. Could the child of prophecy have changed? With such power, it would be strange if she wasn't the saintess. Moreover, Miss Gali and Miss Edian are the same age. I'm certain the saintess mentioned in the prophecy is Miss Edian. Edian, overhearing this, was confused. I just wanted to calm it down because I was worried the saintess might get hurt. She was incredibly worried, wondering if she had caused trouble for the saintess. What should she do now? The saintess might be angry, but unexpectedly, the gentle saintess said, Edian, you were amazing. Thanks to you, everyone's lives were saved. The saintess's words were so warm. From that day on, Edian never saw the saintess again and felt a deep sense of regret. But now, Edian's wish had come true. She couldn't contain her emotions. She never thought she would see the saintess again, let alone hold her hand. Tybe gently took Edian's hand and said, I will formally greet you. She gracefully curtsied in royal fashion, welcoming her to the Gali estate. Edian was thrilled, but she dare not show it. Am I dreaming? She politely bowed to Tybe. Thank you for the welcome. Tybe inquired. It seems you've been in the carriage for quite some time, Edian. I came down to see. Were you waiting for your uncle? Edian hesitated. Oh yes. I was a little worried because you were late, wondering if something had happened. Tybe covered her face with a worried expression. Of course, if she says there's a problem, there probably is. Edian was puzzled. Indeed, she thought, if the saintess herself came down, it must be a serious matter. Suddenly, Tybe took Edian's hand. Let's talk while we walk, she said, startling the younger girl. The actual saintess was holding her hand. Then, she eagerly led Edian into the mansion. Trust me, Edian, I'll help you join the family. Meanwhile, In the central hall of the Duke's mansion, Grandfather had almost settled the matter with Count Gilbert. For now, I won't do anything that threatens Tybe's position, especially since she's suspected of murder. The girl needs a shield, and that's this family. That granddaughter I haven't treated properly my entire life. So, right now, I won't. Grandfather confessed painfully, there's something I've been avoiding because it reminds me of my deceased son. All I can do is raise her well, so she won't be ashamed of the title of saintess. It all started years ago. The butler asked, "Have you considered talking to Miss Tybe?" But Grandfather replied coldly, "Forget it. That girl cries just looking at my face." Then, he handed a piece of paper to the butler. "Take this. It's a list of tutors I've chosen. I've selected the best teachers on the continent, so that girl can live without envying others. She doesn't need someone like me." As per Grandfather's arrangements, Tybe had been learning many things from the best instructors since childhood. He could only helplessly watch the little girl from afar. All he could do was give orders in a stern voice. What child will like a grumpy old man like me? During one practice session, Tybe scraped her knee. It hurt terribly. The maid rushed over, worriedly saying, "I'll get some medicine from the doctor. Please inform the master." Tybe, upon hearing this, replied coldly, "No, don't tell Grandfather. He's busy. He won't want to hear the needs of a granddaughter he doesn't care about." Grandfather didn't even know how to respond to these words. For the girl to say such a thing, what kind of thoughts must she have gone through to become like this? Grandfather said to Count Gilbert, "While I'm not a good grandfather, I have no intention of hurting the girl further. Tybe is my only granddaughter. You're a father too, so you probably understand how I feel right now, don't you?" The Count, struck in a vulnerable spot, didn't know how to respond. Forced to acquiesce, "I understand, if you say so." Before the Count could finish his sentence, Tybe suddenly burst in, pulling Edian along with her. "I'm back, Grandfather." Seeing his granddaughter act this way, Grandfather was stunned. Good heavens, why would she do this to me? What is she thinking? "Tybe, I can't believe she brought Edian inside. I almost had that stubborn man convinced." Count Gilbert was delighted. "Miss Tybe, hello. How did you come back with Edian?" Tybe smiled brightly. "Hello, Count Gilbert. I went out and saw a strange carriage. It seemed like someone was inside, so I intervened a little. It seems I was too hasty." The Count quickly said to Tybe, "No, it's nothing. Not at all. Edian also wanted to see Miss Tybe more, didn't you, Edian?" Edian, called out, looked bewildered and lost. Seeing this, Tybe took Edian's hand and said with a smile, "I chatted with Edian on the way, and we even talked about the reason for your visit to the estate today." The Count was ecstatic, as if he had won the lottery. "But I haven't received permission from the master to have Edian here." This caused the old man to crumble, momentarily deflated. He immediately regained his composure. "The Count is right. I haven't invited Miss Edian as a guest." Tybe was annoyed. "So what? Edian, are you saying she should stay in the carriage under the scorching sun? The Gali family's hospitality, as I understand it, isn't this cruel." Grandfather, feeling Tybe didn't understand, asked again, "You're right, but in the current situation, don't you think bringing Miss Edian into the Gali family is a bit much?" Tybe questioned, "Are you saying let Edian take the Gali name?" He sternly stated, I have no intention of accepting that." But Tybe disagreed with this. "You thought he'd handle it wisely, so you didn't say anything, but I'm disappointed. If you treat Edian like this..." Grandfather was shocked upon hearing this. "What are you saying?" Tybe reminded him. "Wouldn't it be better to confirm Edian is protected under the Gali name? Most importantly, I don't want many people to be troubled because of this. Edian is the child of prophecy, so she must be given the respect she deserves." He immediately explained, "Tybe, you don't know the consequences of what you're saying." But she remained firm. "You know he wants to reconfirm, but you're still going to do this?" Tybe stated definitively, "You'll be fine. Please make a reasonable decision." Her insistence stemmed from the fact that she actually had no intention of staying with this family long term. She would run away. So it didn't matter who became the adopted daughter or wife. He wasn't doing it because he cared. He probably just didn't want to be criticized for abandoning his own blood relative. He thought for a moment, then said, "I understand. If Tybe says so, I'll give the Gali name to Miss Edian." Hearing this, both Count Gali and Tybe were delighted. Well, the joy didn't last long, because Grandfather continued, "Count, don't get too excited. The Gali name I'm permitting is the Gali." Both Tybe and Count Gali froze. "What did you say?" The surname Gali, but not a member of the Gali family. Grandfather stated gravely, "We cannot permit anything beyond this." Tybe worried that things were going beyond her plan. "You're not going to separate Edian from the family, are you? Are you really going to do this? There's absolutely no way Edian can be rejected. No, this couldn't happen." Young Miss Edian felt deeply conflicted. "If I become a Gali, I'll be taking the Duchess's place." A short while ago, Tybe had spoken privately with Edian. "Edian, you are the saintess. It's time you enjoyed the things befitting that position." Edian hesitantly asked again, "What about the princess?" But Tybe wasn't worried, calmly replying, "I'll find a suitable position for myself as well. Don't worry about me." Edian thought to herself, in that moment, "I was only excited about the position of saintess and didn't think about the Mrs. feelings at all." She made up her mind. "Don't worry, princess. I'll be on your side." Suddenly, Tybe took her leave. "I'll be going now. You two continue your pleasant chat." She thought. Now everything would go back to normal. Tybe muttered to herself as she walked. "Then I should finish the rest of my schedule as well." She saw the news on the table and suddenly thought of Ethan. She sat down in a chair. It seemed the letter she wrote in the morning had already received a reply. Instances of normal magic use aren't common, so I can keenly sense this magic. By exchanging mediums, feeling the memories of the magic, and perceiving the other person's emotions. Paper is indeed convenient, but it's different from a direct conversation. Through this letter, I can feel Ethan's emotions as he wrote it. She picked up the paper and read, "Good morning, Tybe. It seems you went to bed early, so I couldn't wait for a letter. I was worried, wondering if something had happened. I'm glad you left a way to contact you, even if it's just for a short time." She smiled. "What the Ethan? He was waiting for my letter. He really is a kind person." Tybe savored the process of reading and feeling the magic woven into the letter, a palpable sense of joy and relief washing over her after the lack of contact last night. Ethan must have been worried, wondering if something had happened. There was still much to read, and Tybe slowly unfurled the scroll to continue. "Don't you have any thoughts about the ring from the auction? The yellow diamond on the ring matches your eye color so perfectly." Who knew it would keep going, growing longer and longer as she read? Why was he writing about such trivial things? 2 pigeons were perched outside his window. She felt a pang of guilt. She had only briefly written the urgent contact information, yet his message was as lengthy as ever. Ethan's letter continued. "Do you remember there's a party at the Imperial Palace the day after tomorrow? I haven't heard from Tybe about the dress code, so I wanted to ask in writing. If you leave a short message, I'll check it immediately." Reading this, Tybe suddenly realized, has it already come to that day? If it weren't for Ethan, there wouldn't be a party like this. She grabbed her ink pen. "I have to reply quickly." She carefully wrote, "The dress code is sharp. Matching eye color and gemstone ring colors is trending lately. Those 2 pigeons are probably a couple." Just as Tybe finished writing, Ethan replied, sending an immediate response. "Sharp? You know, it's a shame you're not very sensitive to these trends, so you can't give a precise answer." Receiving the reply, Tybe was overjoyed, a tingling sensation in her toes. It seemed he was pleased with that response. She asked Ethan, "Is your sharp outfit ready? Even if you don't follow fashion trends, your attire is always quite impressive." Ethan immediately responded, mentioning a sword-shaped button made according to the Savita's seal. He felt his outfit was quite good, believing the butler's choice of clothing to be very fashion-sensitive. Suddenly he paused. The story about the pigeon couple seems a bit boring. Let's change to a more interesting topic." Thinking this, he wrote in the letter, "The pigeons seem a little dull. Did anything happen today?" Reading these words, Tybe chuckled. "So cute, and a little embarrassing too." She replied, "Ethan, recently Saintess Edian came to my estate. Also, because of the party the day after tomorrow, I was wondering, could you ask if the party the day after tomorrow is related to Miss Edian?" Tybe answered, "It's about Edian receiving the Gali's protection, so I'm guessing something related will happen that day." Ethan asked again, wanting to know if Edian harbored any animosity towards her. At this, Tybe hesitated. Are there any rumors about Edian disliking you?" He immediately responded, "There are absolutely no such rumors. I just wanted to know how you've been feeling lately. But those concerns are perfectly reasonable." That's right. If you look at it from the outside, my relationship with Edian is adversarial. We're not only tied together by the position of saintess, but also bound within the same family. Edian is a truly kind person, In the novel, her benevolence becomes the most crucial factor in saving the world. Tybe thought to herself, I've been struggling with criticism from the outside, and it seems Ethan is worried too. I don't sense any particularly strong emotions from Ethan's magic. Then she wrote in the letter, thank you for your concern, but Edian is a good person. But Ethan didn't believe it just because she was a good person. He reminded his fiancée, Tybe, I've done as you said, but please remember, every betrayal comes with a smile. Tybe immediately reassured him, Ethan, I understand your worries, but you really don't need to be so concerned. Trust me. Ethan blushed, laughing. The saintess truly has a forgiving heart. There's no other way. Of course, Tybe, I'll clear every obstacle in your path. Ethan said, you don't need to worry. Thinking this, Ethan called Lara to clean his weapons. He responded, it seems the target list has grown again. Lara asked, puzzled, who else besides the young Master Lunette? He said, don't forget the warning. If 2 people die in the palace, it will be easily discovered. Ethan explained, don't worry, this isn't about killing the target. This time, the target is the head of the Zodiac Guild constellation. I've always been stubborn, but after learning that Edian is connected to Aquarius, one of the Zodiac leaders, I can't let that gang slide. A sinister smile, a villain smile, spread across his face. My fiancé says the new saintess isn't dangerous, but I don't want to overlook those who threaten her. The Zodiac Guild, this will be my warning to Edian. She won't die, but in exchange for her life, all the perpetrators of the murders will be brought to justice. Actually, the Zodiac Guild is the only S-rank intelligence guild on the continent. The name originates from the 12 Zodiac constellations, and their positions and names are also borrowed from these constellations. The leader of the Zodiac Guild is Aquarius, the most powerful person in the guild. That's Cassiopeia, the Andromeda constellation. Each of the 12 leaders will have a subordinate named after a constellation, and that's the problem. One of the 12 leaders is Edian's cousin, Tybe said. Edian isn't dangerous. Just because she was born with a bit of luck, she can take everything away from Tybe, which is troublesome enough. Now only Golly is left, Ethan told Lara. The previous conversation was enough to convince him that Edian's existence itself is a threat to Tybe. Lara, go tell the butler to prepare a gift, Ethan said, tossing a pile of documents in the fireplace. 2 people, one who mocked Tybe's handling of the target, and another who was also a threat, have disappeared. Ethan sat in his chair, restless, silence, as if the place didn't suit her, as if she could leave at any moment. Can she be with me? By the time Tybe arrived at the meeting point with Ethan, he was already waiting. Lunette, who had followed her, scoffed. He's been waiting a while. He sneered. It's already an hour past the appointed time. Tybe, panting from running, exclaimed, shut up, I know, I'll apologize. Suddenly, Lunette slowed his pace. I can't perfectly observe the target anyway. You have to do one thing. My cousin might be in danger, so please look after her. Without thinking, Tybe blurted out, okay, I'll at least keep an eye on Edian. We'll monitor the target. Hearing this, Lunette asked sternly, how did you know? This left Tybe bewildered. Lunette continued, I mean, about the truth of Aquarius's cousin being declared the new saintess. Understanding finally dawned on Tybe. Oh dear. Lunette pressed further. Did someone from the Zodiac Guild say something? Tybe stammered, no, it's not like that, because the constellations always know more than we do. Lunette gave a strained smile. Are you trying to avoid the subject? Using our motto. Tybe was still flustered, unsure how to explain. Lunette sighed. Whether it was then or now, she's never been good at lying. He pretended not to know. From her reaction, it was clear no one had revealed anything. If it's not because of the guild, then it's fine. I'll contact you and report as usual. Tybe quickly regained her composure. Go ahead, Marin. Marin smiled. Then I'll be going now, and then suddenly vanished. Tybe, recalling what just transpired, felt uneasy. She had inadvertently revealed details of the characters, and not just this time. It seemed the memories from the novel and her past life were merging over time. After a long time, the memories of her past life had faded. The only clear memory was that of the monster flower world. It was as if all unrelated information was being erased from this world. I need to be more careful. Finally, Tybe arrived at the meeting point with Ethan. Ethan greeted her cheerfully. Tybe, you're here. Seeing Ethan, Tybe panicked. Running over, she gently caressed Ethan's face. I'm sorry I'm late. You've been waiting a long time, haven't you? Look. Seeing this, Ethan rushed to comfort her. It's all right. If it's Tybe, even if I waited a month, I'd be happy. Tybe scolded him playfully. What are you saying? You should have left if I wasn't coming. I was worried something might have happened, so I contacted you first, but you didn't get in the carriage. Ethan gently took Tybe's small hand in his. But if you wait for me, I will come. I won't abandon you. Hearing Ethan say this, Tybe replied, of course. She clung to his arm, reluctant to let go. Tybe thought to herself, I'm not lying. Even if breaking off the engagement means canceling the marriage contract, it doesn't mean my relationship with Sal will break down. If you're going to leave, you have to end things ruthlessly. But with Ethan, you can't do that, especially not when he looks like this. Noticing Tybe staring, Ethan asked, why are you looking at me like that? Tybe responded slyly, just thinking how handsome you are. Then she gazed intently at her fiancé, hoping Ethan would be well. That's why I need to leave quickly. If I stay here, it will only cause him trouble. Then, anxiously glancing at his wrist, she murmured, but it's about time Marin contacted me. I haven't seen Master Lunette yet. I'm feeling a bit uneasy. Should I go look for him myself? Suddenly, an announcement rang out. Son of the Empire, the wise Emperor, Crown Prince Killian. In reality, he's just a lucky guy who accidentally became Crown Prince due to the death of his older brother, the Queen's son. Tybe sighed in frustration. Killian is the male lead of this novel. Seeing him, irritation flared within her. She couldn't believe she was seeing that face again. Though others were unaware, Tybe had known Killian's true nature since childhood. Back then, a friend had asked him, why do you always follow the saintess around? Crown Prince Killian had calmly replied, I gain a lot from her. She is everything I need. His values have been twisted from a young age. Standing there, radiating a dazzling aura, was Crown Prince Killian Lenroy, the male protagonist of this novel. Tybe frowned, thinking, I knew I'd run into him here, but I didn't expect to see that face again. Ethan spoke. Soon, because we often met at parties since we were young, we became childhood friends. Honestly, those times were quite fun. If Killian knew she wasn't the saintess, maybe she would still be by my side. I often thought that way when I was young and naive. But then I overheard Killian's true thoughts that day. When Tybe was a child, while playing, she found herself unable to see Killian, but could hear his voice coming from the other side. She immediately went to that spot, about to call out the prince's name. She heard another child crowding around Killian, asking, why do you always follow the saintess around? Tybe covered her mouth, standing behind the door and listening. When his friend was mentioned, she heard the crown prince tell his friend that playing with the saintess allowed him to gain a lot. She is everything I need. That day, Killian betrayed Tybe's trust in him. Back at the party, he stood beside Edion, the two protagonists side by side, an incredibly conspicuous sight. Ethan and Tybe, standing nearby, also heard someone finally ask if it was truly her who had saved everyone during the hunt. Everyone was praising her bravery. Ethan seemed displeased at these words, while Tybe appeared indifferent, as if it were something she was used to. Wherever you go, people were talking about Edion. After the hunt, stories about Edion could be heard everywhere in high society. But for some reason, Golly clung tightly to Edion, not letting her go out. People's curiosity about the saintess grew more and more, seemingly without end, until he appeared and held Crown Prince Killian's hand. It was truly a perfect debut for the saintess. At the same time, it was also an act that was far too cruel to Tybe. Thinking this, Ethan called out to the silent figure standing beside him, Tybe, do you care or don't you? Tybe heard Ethan ask, a little surprised. What do you mean? Ethan elaborated, you've been looking in that direction for a while now. Tybe startled, drawing in a small, quiet breath. She silently cursed herself, feeling a little exposed for staring too intently. Putting on a smile, she replied to Ethan, I'm fine. Are you uncomfortable being alone with me? Looking at the chaotic crowd over there, Tybe thought, even if they're all ignoring me, it's enough to compare here. Perhaps this is just how it is. At that moment, Ethan murmured, how could I be? I'm not uncomfortable at all. As long as I'm with you, anywhere is fine. Just as Ethan was about to say something romantic, Edion suddenly appeared between the two of them, a bright smile on her face. My lady, we meet again here. Tybe was taken aback. Edion, her eyes sparkling. Edion replied, yes, princess. You look beautiful today. Tybe offered a compliment in return. That dress suits you very well, Edion. Ethan asked, why is the crown prince here? Killian, from the side, answered smoothly, my companion today is Edion. Even if I am a gentleman, I must accompany her, right? Is there a problem with that? He finished his question and bowed to kiss Edion's hand. Tybe, standing next to them, smiled, but thought, problem? Plenty. The biggest one being that I don't want to talk to you. So she quickly turned and called to her fiancé, Ethan, I'm thirsty. Could you get me some cider from over there? Of course. He immediately went to fetch her a drink. At this moment, Killian lowered his voice and asked Tybe, it seems Duke Salvador doesn't know about the Emperor's apple allergy. Tybe answered in a low voice, yes, Only you and I know about this. The Emperor is allergic to apples, so you won't find any in the palace." The atmosphere between the two instantly shifted. Killian smiled, thinking, even though she knows full well, she still sent the Duke to get cider. Does she really not want her fiancé to witness this scene? The more I watch, the more interesting it gets. Edion, staring blankly at the two facing each other, called out softly, "Crown Prince and my lady, are you two close?" Killian, delighted by the question, replied, "Of course." Tybe retorted, annoyed, "Not at all." Hearing this, Killian feigned hurt. "How sad. We've known each other since we were children." Tybe thought, "Friends? You never thought of it that way." She said, "If you only consider the time we've spent together, it's not that long. From that perspective, it hasn't even been a few years." She mused, "After learning his true nature, I always avoided the Crown Prince. Yet, he doesn't seem to care about my attitude at all." Sure enough, upon hearing Tybe's cold words, Killian cheerfully replied, "A few years is enough time to build castle." Tybe responded icily, "If it's enough, go build one yourself." Edion, standing beside them, said admiringly, "This is the first time I've seen my lady so straightforward with someone. You two really are close." Tybe was dumbfounded. What on earth is she seeing? Killian quickly wiped away a fake tear. "That's right, Miss Edion. Tybe absolutely loathes me." Tybe nodded, just like His Highness said. Edion offered another opinion. "Then let's dance together and reconcile." Tybe rolled her eyes. "Why?" Edion replied innocently, "Why not? I heard that some capitals now use dancing as a symbol of friendship." Tybe sighed silently. "There's no such thing." Edion eagerly pushed the two of them forward. "Go on, hurry up." Tybe called out in a fluster. "Edion, wait." Killian, standing beside her, smiled. "You really can't stop the saintess. Let's just go along with it." Tybe responded coldly. "How amusing." The two unwitting individuals had already reached the center of the dance floor. Killian placed his hand on Tybe's waist and said, "Tybe, turn that way." Tybe's heel came down squarely on the Crown Prince's toes. She smiled triumphantly. "I know better than you." Killian sighed. "The same personality as always." Tybe didn't respond further. Glancing around, she thought about how she wanted to get through this quickly, as quite a few people had been staring at her for a while. Refusing the Crown Prince in this situation would only spark more rumors. Moving gracefully forward, Tybe asked Killian, "Your dancing skills are still the same, I presume?" Killian retorted, his tone still sharp. "Your hatred for me remains the same as well." He murmured this to Tybe. Her face immediately cooled as she responded, "Honestly, Killian, what are you trying to do by bringing Edion here?" Killian laughed. "It seems you've misunderstood something. Edion wanted to see you herself." Tybe was a little surprised. "Miss Edion?" Killian nodded. "She said she wanted to find you, so I simply helped her a little as she couldn't find you." "If we couldn't find you, we were wondering if we should leave." Tybe nodded. "All right, then what do you want?" Killian answered with a smile. "I was curious about your reaction." The music swelled to a crescendo, and the two leaned back together in a poetically romantic way. Killian said, "Most importantly, because I missed you terribly. Tybe Louisa Carley, my unfortunate saintess." Her legs made a rustling sound as she stepped back. The surrounding children turned their heads and noticed. One boy asked, "Wasn't that the Carley saintess who just ran out?" "Maybe he's already heard. Be careful what you say, otherwise." The two children whispered to each other warily. Meanwhile, Killian remained calm, smiling as he assessed them. The Geo family thrives on their merchant status, and the eldest son of the Afghan family has served the royal family for generations. These are the people I need to control in the future. The Crown Prince reassured them. It's all right. He's not the type to seek revenge for something like this. If you tell the adults, they'll only ask me about it in private. The two children breathed a sigh of relief, looking at Killian, unaware of his subtle maneuvering to bring them to his side by creating a common enemy. And so, if it were him, he would understand. Memory and perseverance superior to his peers, and the audacity to do whatever it takes to achieve his goals. I've only gotten this far by using you. If you're willing, you can use me to your heart's content as well. We both know each other's true colors, don't we? But now, seeing Tybe's sorrowful expression, Killian was taken aback. What's with that expression? The boy had assumed Tybe wouldn't hold a grudge after hearing those words. His plan had gone completely awry. Back in the present at the party, everyone around was staring at Killian and Tybe. Killian, looking embarrassed, said, "Tybe, this is the first time I've realized how terrible your dancing is." Tybe scoffed. "Don't you think that's a rather rude thing to say to a lady?" "Crown Prince Killian?" Killian asked again. "Why don't you go check on your fiancé?" His eyes seemed to burn. Tybe frowned. "Don't say such strange things. Do you think you're fond of him?" Killian lifted his chin. "It's true. If you don't believe me, just watch. As he spoke, he wrapped his arm around Tybe's waist and lifted her up. Tybe glanced at Ethan. He simply wore a sorrowful expression, as if to say, Tybe, come back. Tybe angrily confronted Killian. Impossible. Are you lying to me? Killian was taken aback by Ethan's sudden change in expression. He thought, indeed, to make that kind of face knowing nothing, yet not seeing. No wonder he can sense killing intent. Unfazed, Killian twirled Tybe, smiling. I truly missed you. Not a day went by that I didn't hear your name. A new saintess appeared, and there were even rumors that she was an assassin. Tybe, slightly surprised, asked, the rumors have spread that far already? She stepped forward, intending to step on Killian's foot again in retaliation, but this time Killian was prepared. Tybe noticed him dodging, but if they continued like this, he would fall. Fortunately, Killian reached out and steadied her, murmuring a low warning. If you make a mistake here, rumors will spread that you tried to assassinate the crown prince. Tybe responded with a cold laugh. What a shame. It would have been much better if it weren't for first love. At that moment, Killian suddenly said, the rumors accusing you of murder are growing. I know you wouldn't normally do something like that. She was stunned, thinking he knows it wasn't me. What does he mean by that? As their dance ended, Killian looked at her sincerely. If you need help, come find me. Then he turned and walked away. Tybe stood there bewildered. If you need help, ask me. So that's what he meant. If I don't want to be framed, do I have to kneel before him? But how can Killian be so sure he's not the culprit? Maybe Killian is the real murderer. It's possible. In the original story, Killian often killed people for certain purposes or just caused trouble for others for fun. If Killian really is the murderer, then I'm like walking into a tiger's den. If Lunette is killed in this tricky situation and Malin is caught, no one will believe I'm innocent. My plans will crumble, and so will I. Edion, unaware of Tybe's inner turmoil, was full of admiration. That was amazing. You two danced so well. Ethan also approached, his voice gentle. I saw you dancing. We always dance together, so I never realized, but from a spectator's perspective, I find it even more stunning. Tybe's complexion was poor, but she still attempted a smile, telling Ethan, thank you. She sighed inwardly, feeling utterly suffocated. Just then, Ethan offered her a red drink. Here, I couldn't find the cider you mentioned, but you looked thirsty, so I brought you something refreshing. Tybe took the glass, thinking if I put anything in my mouth right now, I might throw up. But if I refuse, I'll be ignoring Ethan's kindness. Just then, someone walked over and took the glass, saying to Tybe, excuse me, I just moved a bit, and I feel a burning sensation in my throat. How about giving this to me? The person who spoke was none other than Crown Prince Killian. Tybe was startled. Killian, she wasn't sure what he was thinking, but she should greet him first. Putting on a smile, she asked Ethan, Ethan, is that all right? Ethan smiled gently, as always. Of course. Tybe realized with slight surprise that even if just for a moment, the expression on Ethan's face just now, the stone on Tybe's bracelet suddenly glowed. She quickly turned away, realizing it was a message from Malin. Malin's hoarse voice came through. Second floor rooftop. Tybe was surprised to hear Malin's voice. Clearly, something had happened. She turned and called out to a waiter standing not far away. Tybe hurriedly told herself she had to leave immediately. Edion also noticed something was amiss with Tybe. Over there. Tybe turned to everyone and said, it seems my friend is looking for me. I'll be back. Ethan was a little curious. Who could it be? Tybe tried to remain calm, replying, just for a moment. I won't be long, just a moment. Ethan said worriedly, my lady, you don't look well. Ethan reached for Tybe's hand, but she instinctively pulled away. Flustered, she turned without another word, offering only a quick, I'll be right back, to the three of them. Deeply worried about Malin, Tybe shook off Ethan's hand and hurried away without another word. Ethan silently watched the direction Tybe had left, his worry evident. My lady. As others witnessed the scene, whispers arose again. Oh, Miss Edion is so kind to her, but still, are the rumors true? That the fake saintess is a murderer? Even if nothing has been revealed, if she isn't the imposter, then who is? Ethan felt a pang of sadness, blaming himself, believing it was because of him that the princess was misunderstood. What should I do now? The princess has always been so good to me. It was clear something awkward had happened. Just thinking about it, Edion turned and said without hesitation, I'll follow the princess. Killian was taken aback. Wait, but Edion was already walking away. The crown prince could only mutter under his breath. I told you to wait. Tybe rushed to the rooftop on the second floor. Anxiety gnawed at her. If it's an emergency contact, the situation might not be good. The longer I delay, the more dangerous it is for Malin. Malin always manages to come back safe, no matter the mission. I thought it would be the same this time. I was too confident. Please be safe. She called out Malin's name. Just then, a hand suddenly covered Tybe's mouth from behind. It was Malin. He pulled her into a nearby dark corner, whispering, "Be quiet. It might still be around here." Seeing his state, Tybe's face paled instantly. Malin, oh my God, the wound. Malin gave a weak smile, then collapsed into Tybe's arms, unable to support himself any longer. I knew she would come. Tybe was both frightened and confused, and not because of the injury. His body was being consumed by darkness. This parasitic monster trades power for the host's blood, but if you're not careful, it can devour you. Its power can become your weakness. I have to purify or remove the monster with medicine, but if there's too much blood loss, I can't take it out. If the bleeding continues, Malin will be in danger. So there's only one method left, a healing spell. But there's not enough time to reach the temple. Malin could no longer hold on. He squeezed his eyes shut, groaning in pain. Tybe unconsciously bit her lower lip. She stood up resolutely, seemingly having made a decision. She had no choice. Taking the key from the lock. From now on, no one could know what happened. Pulling the curtains closed, Tybe thought, this is my first time trying Ethan's method. I don't know if it will work, but I can only hope it does. Sedulet Centaur Court, Aquarius, Delta Capricorn. Tybe said coldly, answer me. The 12 constellations could bestow blessings. All books on divine and magical power began with that phrase. Since the 12 constellations were considered the path where the sun connected with the earth, those who used the power of the constellations wielded nothing less than the power of divine and magical force. Therefore, until now, she had been starting to materialize the mana training method to harness the constellation's power. Furthermore, it was believed that mana attributes existed. While she could only handle 6 constellations, each related to a specific attribute, she could also use magic like divine power. Ethan can ignore mana's attributes and handle all 12 constellations, meaning he can manage all mana. Tybe thought, luckily, I learned how to use the constellations last time. I can use them now just like Ethan. As expected, at this moment, Tybe entered another space. A strange voice echoed, "Young lady, what brings you to call upon us in this manner?" Tybe cheered excitedly in her mind. It worked. She quickly told them, "Please help me. My friend is in danger." Aquarius, appearing in the form of a child, glanced at Tybe and said, "Its magic is insufficient." How foolish. Tybe, not all weakened, replied firmly, "I am indeed foolish and presumptuous, but I truly need it, as I know no other way." Aquarius shook its head. Presumptuous? No, it is not that. It is said there are 3 ways to unlock the power of the 12 constellations. Borrowing a portion of a constellation's power to descend Earth, allowing a constellation to possess a human body, and temporarily summoning a constellation. Ethan, they can use their powers in their own way. The method Tybe planned to use was the summoning method, the most difficult of the 3. Difficult because the constellations might refuse to assist the summoner. At that moment, Capricorn, in the form of a goat, let out a cold laugh. Clearly a child who hasn't thoroughly read the grimoire of demonic magic. Apologies, but I'm not very interested in children who don't understand. But then, Tybe spoke unexpectedly. If you're not going to help, then disappear. If you don't help, I'll summon another constellation. This is a gamble, Tybe thought, but there's no other way. Capricorn asked Tybe in surprise, "Is your magic power too strong right now?" Tybe responded sternly, "My friend is dying out there. I will do whatever it takes to save him." Hearing this answer, Capricorn sneered. Indeed, not an ordinary child. How audacious. Very well, I'm satisfied. It would be a shame to reject this body. I am Delta Capricorn. I will answer the summoner's call. Tybe was overjoyed. Capricorn extended a hand towards her. Yes, thanks to this, I succeeded in the summoning. She cheered silently. Then, another voice, full of sincerity, rang out from behind Tybe. I really like people like this. I will help her. It was Aquarius. He tugged at Tybe's skirt, saying awkwardly, "Fool, but I don't dislike you." Tybe beamed. Aquarius, a harvest beyond expectations. Then, 3 other figures asked, "So what should we do?" Tybe smiled at them. "Don't worry, I'll let you do what you're best at." Meanwhile, back at the party, Ethan stood anxiously by the doorway. Tybe has been gone a long time. A voice cut through his thoughts. "Looking for trouble, Duke? That's not a very good attitude." Ethan replied coldly. What's it to you? Killian sneered. Who would have thought you'd become like this after Tybe left? Ethan's voice remained icy. It's a pity we've met more than once or twice. Killian pressed further, his voice low. Is that all? Tybe sees you once a week, but she probably doesn't know you're like this. Ethan shot Killian a frigid glance, cursing him silently. What a nuisance. He remembered now. When he returned to the hall after fetching Tybe a drink, he'd seen her dancing with Killian. She'd spoken to him with an unfriendly tone. If you warn me like that, I can understand. Stop hovering around me, Ethan. Killian had responded calmly, quite cold indeed. Does your fiancé know? Tybe scoffed. Probably because he doesn't know. I'm only like this with you. Her words bothered Ethan. Tybe is always friendly to everyone, he thought, but in front of the crown prince, she suddenly becomes unexpectedly blunt. I'm truly envious of that. You've also gotten rid of that mindset. Just as the tension between the two men began to escalate, a voice interrupted them. Ethan, I'm sorry, I'm really late. Tybe hurried towards them. The moment he saw her, Ethan's expression softened, his eyes gentle as he called out Tybe. This change in demeanor surprised Killian. Unaware of what had transpired, Tybe continued speaking to Ethan, apologizing profusely. Killian pursed his lips, a flicker of regret in his eyes. Just a little more pressure would have been enough. In that situation, it was impossible for him not to follow Tybe. She was clearly hiding something. Meanwhile, Ethan was asking Tybe with a gentle smile, "Did you have a good time chatting with your friend?" Tybe smiled back. Of course. I was almost about to be disliked for being late. Inwardly, she thought, what friend? 10 minutes ago, I was saving a friend who was about to die. Having received the constellation's aid, Tybe began delegating tasks. I will give you the things you are best at to do. Sagittarius spoke up, but hey, your mana is going to run out. Capricorn nodded. If this continues, the summoning spell will end before it can help. Tybe replied confidently, if that's the case, I have a solution. There's plenty of mana in the air. If you filter your own mana for a specific purpose, you won't have to worry about the drain. We have to act. Among the 12 constellations, Aquarius has the strongest healing abilities and will be in charge of healing Malin. Aquarius immediately got to work, channeling energy for healing. I can sense a faint life force, but there's still a chance to save him. Next, Sagittarius, the best at defense, will protect young Master Lunette. He's to follow Lunette and attack the hidden assassin, L.A. I won't let her blessing fade, Sagittarius said coldly. Tybe then commanded Capricorn. The Go can use his magic in many ways, so move Malin to the carriage and protect him. Capricorn, though displeased, obeyed, using my body as a guard. How arrogant. At this point, Aquarius stepped forward and addressed Tybe. Leave this to us. You're in a tricky situation right now, aren't you? You're channeling mana. Ethan, let's go. Relieved, Tybe thought, finally I can go back. But she had expended a significant amount of mana, summoning 3 constellations. Just then, Killian asked, but what about Tybe? Edian, Killian clarified. Tybe tilted her head, puzzled. What about Edian? Weren't you here the whole time? I didn't see her. Ethan spoke up beside her. That's not right. She followed you when you left. Didn't you notice? Tybe was stunned. She followed me? She seemed a little worried. I couldn't look around while summoning the constellations. We have to see Edian directly to be sure. Ethan stepped forward. Tybe says she didn't see her, but since your highness is her companion, you should look for her. Killian didn't back down, asking coldly, Duke, I believe I was just speaking with Tybe. In truth, Tybe hadn't expected Ethan to do this. It was a bit disrespectful to the crown prince. To her surprise, Ethan put on a worried expression. Your highness, if you found that disrespectful, I apologize. Seeing Tybe looking so tired, I interrupted the conversation. I was rude to your highness. He sounded genuinely contrite. Tybe put her hands on her hips and argued with Killian. What are you talking about? Ethan was just concerned for me as my fiancé. Killian, why are you treating Ethan like this? Killian, rendered speechless, quickly turned cold. I'm not in a good mood today, Ethan. It seems I took it out on the Duke. Seeing the sullen expression on Killian's face, Tybe said cautiously to Ethan, we'd better leave quickly. Why does he look? Ethan was clearly unhappy. Regardless, I'll find Edian and then I can talk to her. Tybe reassured herself. She turned swiftly and announced, we'll leave now. You should look for Miss Edian. It's rude to let your companion wander off alone. Killian asked provocatively, leaving so soon? I thought you had something to say to me. Annoyed, Tybe retorted, don't be ridiculous. Father, Ethan, let's go. Ethan politely extended his hand. Allow me to escort you back to the estate. Tybe took his hand, agreeing. Ethan, I'll rely on you. She thought to herself, normally, I'd refuse. But I came in their carriage today, and they already took Malin away. Perhaps they've already arrived? I wonder how Malin is doing. Subordinates were already waiting by the carriage. Seeing the two approach, they immediately addressed Ethan. Duke, you've returned early. Ethan asked in a low voice. L.A., anything unusual? L.A. bowed respectfully. How could there be anything unusual? Just the usual cries of night doves. Ethan said softly, I understand. You've worked hard. Let's depart. But Tybe, noticing something, wore a surprised expression. L.A. bowed respectfully as always. Understood. Tybe stared intently at him, sensing something amiss. That wound. She noticed L.A.'s hand, wrapped in fresh bandages. Back at the estate, as Tybe climbed the stairs, she continued to ponder the matter. Frowning, she recalled the suspicious details from earlier. When Tybe had noticed L.A.'s injured hand, she had asked suspiciously, Hey, is your hand injured? L.A. had immediately hidden his hand behind his back, replying with a strained smile, Oh, this. Nothing special. Sometimes I spar with the Duke. I was injured last time due to my own mistake. Tybe, not wanting to make a fuss, had feigned concern. I see. Be careful. L.A. had scratched his head. Princess, you needn't worry. Tybe had remained silent, but her gaze had lingered on the hand L.A. kept hidden behind his back, because from what she'd seen, the bandages were clearly damp, as if the injury was recent. Was it just her state of mind? Lost in thought, Tybe arrived back at her room before she realized it. Seeing several constellations already in her room, Tybe set aside her concerns and asked, Aquarius, how is Malin? Aquarius replied softly, He's stable now. He should wake up soon. Then Sagittarius spoke up. I've confirmed that young Master Lunette has returned home safely. Capricorn grumbled. This body didn't even get to use 1/10 of its power. Tybe bowed respectfully. Thank you all for your hard work. Aquarius smiled. It's been a while since I've been to the human realm. It was quite entertaining. Capricorn added, Be sure to summon this body again next time. I'll show you something even more impressive. Then both of them vanished. Tybe addressed the remaining figure. Sagittarius, why aren't you moving? What are you doing? Sagittarius replied seriously, You tasked me with guarding and reporting any suspicious individuals. As she spoke, someone approached Leonetta. Tybe frowned, asking urgently, Sagittarius, did you see his face? Sagittarius answered in a low voice, I couldn't see his face. He ran too quickly. The only thing I saw was a scar on his right hand. Hearing this, Tybe's face paled. Wait, she thought, L.A.'s right hand was injured. Could this really be just a coincidence? Sagittarius had already departed, but Tybe remained standing there, lost in thought. A while later, Malin slowly opened his eyes in the bed. He sat up gradually, rubbing his slightly aching head, murmuring, Where am I? Tybe, sitting at a desk reading, asked without turning around, Are you awake? Malin immediately asked in confusion, Miss, where is this? Tybe rose from her chair, smiling. This is my room. Since you were unconscious, I brought you here. Malin was a little surprised, clicking his tongue. Suddenly, as if remembering something, his eyes widened, and he exclaimed, This is Mrs. Room. How could I be in such a place? Hearing his raised voice, Tybe quickly became tense. Shoo, keep your voice down. It's not a big deal. It was an emergency. How are you feeling? Malin looked around, recalling, All my injuries are healed, and the shadow monster is quiet. How did you do it in the end? Tybe told him honestly, I borrowed the power of the constellations. Since it was my first time summoning them, it felt like a game of chess, but I succeeded in the end. What about you? You were with Edian and young Master Lunette, weren't you? Malin recalled the situation coldly. I was ambushed. I don't know how he did it, but he could pinpoint my location in the darkness. I felt like he wasn't just looking. It was as if he could see through me. If not for that, I wouldn't have had to run. It's shameful. Seeing Malin's self-reproach, Tybe sat beside him and comforted him. Don't say that. You did your best. Malin shook his head. No, miss. I almost failed to protect my charge. For Malin, someone who always succeeded in every task, to say such words stunned Tybe. But she quickly regained her composure, touching his face. Malin, what matters is your life. You didn't lose that, so there's nothing to be ashamed of. Malin was so moved he almost cried, his eyes glistening as he said to Tybe, But this will make it harder to protect my charge in the future. Tybe shook her head. That's not necessarily a bad thing. He not only saw the shadow, but also figured out a way to eliminate you, meaning he knew you would be with young Master Lunette today. Ethan, Malin seemed to realize something as Tybe continued. The person I encountered before and the one who ambushed us this time are the same person. Tybe nodded in satisfaction. Exactly. If we're right, his goal wasn't to kill you. Malin asked, Miss, you think so too? Perhaps he planned to kill someone and frame them, which is why he attacked me to prevent my escape. Just thinking about the criminal's plan sends chills down my spine. Tybe replied gravely, exactly. She worried privately that the culprit scheme was even more elaborate than she imagined. At that moment, Malin spoke, drawing Tybe's attention further. Summoning constellations is pretty amazing, isn't it? I should have watched. Those forbidden books I gave you about divine power and mana were useful, weren't they? Looking at Malin's excited expression, Tybe couldn't help but tease him with a smile. Is it really that hard for the guild master to acquire such information? Malin puffed out his chest confidently. Who do you think I am? Tybe popped his bubble of self-importance. But in reality, it's thanks to the grimoire we bought at the auction that I was able to summon them. Malin argued back playfully, but that's not important. What matters is that I helped Miss, isn't it? Anyway, it's truly amazing. No temple can heal like this. Now fully recovered, Malin stood up, buttoning his shirt. Tybe smiled gently. Even when borrowing power, everyone's ability is different. In comparison, descending to the mortal realm is stronger than borrowing, and summoning is stronger than descending. Malin asked curiously, so summoning is really difficult? Tybe nodded in agreement. That's right. The grimoire must strongly resonate with the constellation, and it consumes a lot of energy, so it's very challenging. But we saw that everything went smoothly. The protagonist has the ability to get along harmoniously with Mina, so she believed herself to be the saintess in the temple. In the end, it was just her delusion. Actually, she's quite pitiful in the novel, too. Malin, now standing up straight, stroked his chin and asked Tybe, so does that mean Miss can also use divine power? Tybe nodded. Yes, I can. Hearing this, Malin said seriously, then according to the prophecy, it's a child from Carly, right? Miss has the right conditions, high mana compatibility, and can use divine power. So why not call you the saintess? Tybe was initially surprised, but quickly recovered. She found it quite amusing, asking Malin with a laugh, what did I say that made you mistake me for the saintess? Malin stared blankly, replying, don't laugh, I'm serious. Tybe posed a question that left Malin speechless. Then how do you explain that? Malin hesitated. Seeing him clutching his forehead, Tybe, not wanting to make things difficult for him, thought silently. Actually, you could see it that way, but in the end, there's a special ability that I don't have, and only the real saintess. How should I put it? The image of the incredibly powerful Edian from the novel surfaced in Tybe's mind. She became even more convinced of her thoughts. Only she has the power to save this world. Soon, this empire will be consumed by monsters born from forbidden experiments. With their immense power, the empire has no defense and seems to be facing its demise. Saintess Edian possesses divine power and can communicate with the monsters. She tames the monsters, creating an army to destroy them. And then, wait, what happens then? Tybe struggled to recall. It's been a while since I read it, so I don't quite remember the ending. Well, since she's the protagonist, destroying them shouldn't be a problem. Malin, crossing his arms, continued. Ethan, what's the next plan? We need to catch the culprit as soon as possible. Tybe cleared her throat seriously. Actually, I suspect Ethan's attendant. According to Sagittarius, the criminal's palm was pierced by his arrow, and Ethan's attendant has an identical injury in the same spot. Malin was shocked. Really? So you're saying, Duke, Ethan is the real culprit? Recalling Ethan's gentle face, both of them became hesitant, exchanging glances, filled with doubt. Tybe sighed. It's hard to believe. Malin, looking down, replied, but it's not impossible. The Duke is truly fond of Mississippi. Perhaps he just wanted to deal with those who threatened Mississippi. Tybe offered a gentle smile. Malin, I understand what you mean, but he's my fiancé. Ethan has always trusted me, so I don't want to jump to conclusions. Malin understood, scratching his head awkwardly. I know. Let's wait and see. He thought to himself, she only shows her vulnerable side in front of her fiancé. The scene shifted to a darkened room, a chilling voice echoing within. So you lost your target. Not only did you make a mistake, but how am I supposed to accept this absurd outcome when the plan failed as well? L.A. coldly questioned his guard. L.A., now hanging his head in shame, replied I. I was going to handle it as you instructed, but after putting the Zodiac leader on the verge of death, I went to deal with young Master Lunette, only to find he had vanished. Ethan seemed incredulous. Vanished? A dying man simply vanished. L.A. bowed his head. Yes, that's correct. Ethan stared at him in silence, his mind racing. L.A. couldn't be lying. If it were L.A., that high-profile name couldn't have slipped away. But for a dying man to suddenly disappear, a third party must have intervened. Ethan's voice was low and commanding. Be careful for now, until your hand is fully healed. You may go. Labod deeply ingratitude. Thank you for your generosity. He then turned and left the room. The room fell dark and silent. Ethan pondering the recent events, the final target proving unexpectedly difficult to handle. I wanted to end this perfectly. He pulled a small box from his pocket, murmuring to himself, I couldn't give it to her today after all. In his hand, he held a box containing a gleaming, beautiful ring. Merity's cursed ring. Look, I found this ring at the black market while dealing with young Master Lunette. It has a very interesting story. A story about killing my beloved with my own hands. If the curse is real, she will be by my side until the very last moment. I hope those eyes will always look at me. I've hoped for that since we first met at the Salvador Duchy a few years ago. That was Ethan's home. A voice rang out, sir. What do you mean by this? The butler tried to explain. The young duke has social anxiety. You should build a relationship, not give up on the child. The woman refused to respond. The boy saying he disliked people. He's just a child. The woman was Benesso Man Savato, the head of the Savato family. She sternly told the butler, don't put too much pressure on the child. The butler replied indignantly, pressure? Isn't this all for the young duke's sake? The head lowered her head. As a mother, I know what's best for my child. Besides, don't you know he'll be easier to deal with everyone once he grows up? She covered her mouth, coughing as she finished speaking. Standing outside, the young boy, Ethan, heard everything in silence, worried about his mother. His mother, the head of the family, couldn't foresee the future due to a congenital illness, and the family was left with only one young heir. This was a good opportunity for the petty nobles who only cared about their own interests. Although he didn't say anything, the young duke was very concerned about the head's health. The butler returned to Ethan's room, looking at him with concern, thinking, I know the head plans to control him by having the young duke marry, so it's no wonder the young duke is afraid of people. The butler approached Ethan and asked softly, young master, isn't it too uncomfortable to always stay indoors? Ethan looked a little perplexed. Yes. The butler said to him with a smile, I heard that the saintess of Carly will be visiting the temple today. How about going there? Everyone's eyes are on that girl. If you don't want to go, you can go sightseeing too. The butler thought, it's not a bad place for the young master. At least he should leave this place. So at this moment, he stood quietly, perplexed, pondering what to do. I don't really want to go out, but the butler is genuinely concerned about me, so I'll follow his advice. Then, obediently nodding his head, Ethan agreed. All right, I understand. A short while later, Ethan arrived at the temple, looking around in bewilderment. Wow, he exclaimed. There are so many people at the temple. Is the saintess here? Just then, two girls approached him curiously. Hey, why aren't you holding anything? Didn't you receive a holy relic from the temple? Ethan asked, puzzled. A holy relic? One of the girls, munching on a piece of bread, nodded. Yeah, if you eat it, your body will be purified and blessed by God. Ethan was surprised. Purified? If I eat that, maybe my health will improve. Hesitantly, he walked to the front of the church and addressed the person there. See, can I receive a holy relic? The person held out a small cake. Of course. I prepared plenty of holy relics at the temple. Ethan accepted it gratefully. Thank you, he said politely, thinking, if only mother could have come with me. This would be wonderful for her. I'll give this to her when I get home. However, the person shattered Ethan's hopeful thoughts. But you can't take this outside, okay? Since you're not eating it here and taking it away, it's no different from stealing. So you must finish it here before leaving, understand? Ethan couldn't meet the person's gaze, replying distractedly, yes. Seeing others consuming their holy relics, he instinctively hid his behind his back, awkwardly repeating, yes. The moment the person's attention shifted away from him, Ethan quickly turned and ran. Clutching the cake tightly, he felt a surge of anxiety. I stole something but if I have this, Mother will get better. Just then, Tybe emerged from a room, walking directly into Ethan's path. They collided, and the cake tumbled from Ethan's grasp. Tybe brought a hand to her cheek, letting out a soft gasp. Oh! Then, picking up the fallen cake, she lowered her voice and asked, "Is this a holy relic?" Ethan was caught off guard, hesitating for a moment. Tybe's expression turned serious. "You can't take this outside." "What were you trying to do?" she pressed. "How did you even get out here?" "I've been discovered." Panic seized Ethan. "It's over. Because I was caught taking the holy relic out of the temple, my family might be held responsible. If Mother hears that I stole something, she'll be so disappointed in me. Mother will hate me." Overwhelmed by the thought, tears welled up in Ethan's eyes. He began to sob, confessing to Tybe, "I'm sorry." Tybe was taken aback. Are you crying?" Ethan continued to cry pitifully, tears streaming down his face. "Please don't tell the adults," he pleaded. "Don't say anything, please." Tybe nodded quickly. "I won't say anything, Ethan. Don't cry. If you make a sound, you'll be found out more easily. Be quiet." Ethan looked up. "Found out?" Tybe scratched her head sheepishly. "Well, I snuck out." Ethan looked at her, surprised. "Then won't you get scolded?" Tybe replied calmly, "Don't worry. Everyone thinks I'm frail, so they'll just assume I'm resting somewhere." Ethan lowered his head again. "But that's a lie. If they find out, everyone will be disappointed in you." Tybe fell silent, looking at the boy. After a few seconds, she responded, "So what?" Ethan was stunned by her answer. He lifted his head. Tybe extended her hand towards him, a bright smile on her face. "If other people's expectations make you suffer, you don't have to meet them. The most important person to you isn't other people. Don't worry, as long as no one finds out. It'll be troublesome if the adults discover us." Ethan fell silent, pondering her words. "The most important person to me." No one had ever said anything like that to him before. When his father passed away and his mother became bedridden, everyone placed their expectations on him. The young Duke, suffocating him. Now, he felt like Tybe had awakened him. "But I don't need to meet those expectations. This kindness, I just need to avoid getting caught." It was then that he remembered the stories he'd heard about the saintess. Just a few hours earlier, as he rode to the temple in the carriage, his butler had asked him if he'd heard of the extraordinary saintess Carly. Everyone was astonished, he'd said, because she was so much more mature than others her age. Hearing this, Ethan had been vaguely impressed. "Really?" he'd murmured. Now in this moment, it clicked. He connected it to the girl standing before him. "So, this person is Saintess Carly." Tybe Signin picked up the fallen cake, quietly contemplating what to do with it. He had snuck it out, but now he didn't want to eat it. She offered it back to Ethan. "Here, you take it." Ethan accepted the cake, looking heartbroken. "I was going to give this to Mother, so I can't eat it." Tybe noticed his crestfallen expression and felt a pang of concern. Is he really that hungry? Then, placing her hands on her hips, she declared, "I'm a little bored, but this works out perfectly. It should be fine to steal a little something like this," she thought, observing his distress. "Look how nervous he is." With newfound confidence, Tybe reassured Ethan, "This all happened because of me. I'll take responsibility." Moments later, she returned with an armful of cakes. Ethan was utterly bewildered. He brought back so many. Hesitantly, he asked, "Is it really all right if I take this many?" Tybe waved her hand dismissively, a smile playing on her lips. It's fine. It's just bread." "No," Ethan protested. "It's sacred, so there's a lot of it." Just then, a voice called out from nearby. "Saintess, where are you?" Tybe whirled around. "I have to go. Remember, our meeting is a secret." Ethan stood there, watching her retreating figure, whispering to himself, "Saintess, when will we meet again?" And so, for the time being, the story of their childhood encounter came to a close. Back in her room, Tybe's maid gasped. "Goodness me, miss. Did something good happen? Why are you smiling at the bread?" Tybe, gazing at the cakes, replied, "I went to the temple because I was in need of some help." The memory of her childhood encounter surfaced. "I wonder how that boy is doing now. These remind me of the boy I met when I was younger," she mused. The maid nodded in understanding. "I used to take my younger siblings to eat this. I think they even said it was a holy relic that couldn't be taken outside, right? The temple often holds regular relief efforts to win people's hearts, and that's the bread they distribute. So that's why they call it a holy relic. But of course, it's not actually holy. It's just bread. Calling it a holy relic is just a lie to prevent theft. That priest is so stingy." Then, turning to her maid, Tybe asked, "Emily, why is the estate unusually quiet today? Did something happen?" The maid suddenly became flustered, avoiding Tybe's gaze. Tybe sensed something immediately. You're hiding something from me. I promised to keep it a secret, so tell me. The maid replied awkwardly, although Master told me not to say anything. Since you insist, I will, but this really is a secret. Tybe was slightly taken aback. The maid hesitated, then revealed. Actually, the day you returned from the royal banquet, the elders came here to discuss the saintess's household registration. Master was furious about it. He even drew his sword and drove the elders away. He said, "No matter what happens, I will not allow the Etienne family to be registered." Tybe listened, perplexed. What does that mean? Since last time, I still don't understand why Etienne hasn't been granted citizenship. She brought a hand to her forehead, lost in thought. Why are you so insistent on that decision? As if you care about me. Overhearing this, the maid retorted. How could he not care? It's just a misunderstanding. Master may seem indifferent, but he's always cared about Mississippi. Just then, a furious voice boomed from the opposite room. This is completely preposterous. Tybe turned her head, puzzled. It's him. Slowly, she walked towards the other room. Inside the room, her grandfather slammed his hand on the table in fury. Lady Carly is suffering such indignities, and yet we can find nothing. From this moment forward, you will investigate in Carly's name. No matter what, you must uncover the truth behind these deadly incidents. Tybe is my only granddaughter. I will protect her, whatever the cost. Tybe stood outside, listening, a flicker of doubt in her mind. He says that, but I'm no longer the saintess. Even accusations of murder will ultimately impact the family. Why is he doing this? Is it because he needs me more than the Etienne family does? Though she couldn't predict his actions, she knew that using the family to protect her was merely a temporary measure. I can't just sit idly by. I have to take the initiative and find the true culprit. In a lavish castle chamber, Prince Killian held a steaming cup of tea, a smile playing on his lips as he addressed the person across from him. Ethan, is there a particular reason you've come to see me? Tybe's voice was ice. Killian, let's not beat around the bush. You provoked me at the banquet. Were you hoping I'd come looking for you? Killian chuckled, covering his mouth, his expression alight with amusement. Because you're so easily riled. What schemes is our former saintess concocting? Tybe remained impassive. Why would I trust you with my plans? Perhaps you're the culprit behind all this. Qu'il y en finit de surprise. Is it your grand conclusion after 10 days of contemplation? Perhaps I am the culprit. Are you going to burst in here, grab me by the collar, and demand an explanation? Tybe took a sip of water, her voice calm. I'm almost certain your noble status shields you from scrutiny, and your personality, well, you're the type who might orchestrate something like this. Killian's laughter was laced with intrigue. Oh, Tybe, unwavering, continued. Besides, you'd benefit greatly from my downfall. So answer me. Are you the true criminal behind these incidents? Tybe sat directly across from Killian, her gaze unflinching. The true criminal behind those incidents is you, isn't it? Killian's laughter now held a note of genuine surprise. You truly believe I'm the culprit? Tybe nodded calmly. Yes, Killian, you're the most likely suspect. Killian stared at her, momentarily speechless, then threw his head back and roared with laughter. Looking at the impassive woman before him, he scoffed. Tybe, I've been by your side longer than anyone, and now you think I'm a criminal? We've been together for a long time, and our connection is crystal clear. There's only one reason you would suspect me. Killian's brow furrowed deeply. An image flashed in his mind. Samantha? He must have deceived Tybe with cunning words. 3 years ago, that scoundrel's appearance changed everything. Killian recalled that beautiful morning, dressed impeccably, approaching Tybe with a proposal. Every emperor in history has had a political marriage. Tybe, we wish to become the Carly family. He gently kissed her hand. Think it over. Just consider whether we could be together. Tybe had remained silent, offering no response. Even after a considerable amount of time, Killian had received no answer. After the delayed news of her engagement, I realized I'd been abandoned by Tybe. So that's why, even in this situation, you haven't come to me. Just like before. Is she abandoning me again? Tybe! Killian gritted his teeth. After a moment of reflection, he quickly regained his composure. His voice was serious. I know how ambitious you are. I know how much effort you've put into everything. You wouldn't ruin your own life simply out of jealousy for those victims. Because I know you so well, I'm certain you're not the true culprit. Besides, Whether or not I'm the culprit isn't important, is it? Tybe asked coldly. Then what is important? Killian's words were a stark revelation. You won't be able to uncover the truth on your own. When something like this happens, how can you remain silent? Even if you didn't directly take action, you would try to clear yourself of any suspicion. But I haven't caught the culprit yet, which means this is beyond my capabilities. Tybe didn't reply, but she had to admit Killian's ability to assess the situation was sharp and swift. Instead of denying it, she readily conceded, yes, even the Carley family can't resolve this. Now, let's get to the main point, she thought. Her expression serious. Tybe continued. So, I need the help you mentioned earlier. Killian, help me. Killian looked genuinely surprised at her words. 2 seconds later, a sly smile spread across his face. He chuckled, a mocking edge to his voice. I've lived for this day, the day you would lower your head to me. Of course, I must help. After all, this is Tybe's request, not just anyone's. Tybe watched him silently. Go ahead, laugh while you can. This is a trap to catch the culprit. If you don't want to directly participate in a fight, you hire mercenaries. I decided that whoever gets involved in this fight must be of higher status and influence than me. Whether I win or lose, they will benefit. Only Killian fits these criteria. The Empire's largest festival is held annually, known as the National Founding Day. The founding ceremony is organized by the Crown Prince. Important figures gather, and the saintess personally ascends to the peak of the holy grounds to observe the torch lighting ceremony. I will use this National Founding Day event. If Killian is truly the culprit, I will gather evidence through this event. Even if he isn't, I can still use him to find a real criminal. This is the only way I can catch the perpetrator. But if this plan fails, and I'm deemed the true criminal, Killian will be the one to deal with me. Just like in the original story, the one perceived as the criminal. Because of that, his position will rise. Thinking this, a triumphant smile played on Tybe's lips. She looked at Killian as if he were a monkey trapped in her cage. She had nothing left to lose, so she gambled that Killian would take the bait. But Killian was even more easily fooled than she anticipated. At that moment, Killian, also smiling, said to Tybe, I have one question first. Does your fiancé believe you're innocent? Tybe crossed her arms. Of course he does. What do you take Ethan for? Killian sneered. Didn't you say you suspected me because my status is higher than yours, and because I believed you innocent? So what if Ethan is also a potential suspect? At his words, Tybe turned to him, her voice glacial. Watch your tone. He's my fiancé. How dare you insult him? Killian stroked his chin, his eyes probing. Why don't you have any suspicions at all? Aren't you curious why the man who trusts you so implicitly has never once appeared in relation to the case? Tybe answered calmly. I'm merely his fiancé. He has no obligation to step forward for someone outside the Savato family. Despite her words, Killian's question lingered in her mind. His point is incredibly valid. Until now, I've only suspected his guards. I never truly considered Ethan as the culprit. To me, Ethan is the one who's always been there during my most exhausting moments. Always gentle and warm, greeting me with a sincere smile every time we meet. Tybe tried to remind herself not to be too quick to suspect others. I don't want to out Ethan right now, she stated firmly. Across from her, Killian laughed carelessly. That's quite a pathetic statement, coming from someone who suspects me so readily. Tybe retorted, impatience creeping into her voice. If you're feeling wronged, then try living as kindly as Ethan does. Despite her smile, Killian sighed inwardly, unable to believe she didn't doubt the Duke at all. That's truly unsightly, Samantha. It's unclear what sweet nothings he used to bewitch Tybe, but she doesn't need a guard dog. She needs someone powerful, someone to share her ambitions with. That's why the right person is me, not Ethan. I'm the one who can fulfill Tybe's ambitions. A bastard who hasn't even gotten what he wants yet, taking the position of my fiancé's friend before becoming the one to fulfill Tybe's ambitions. If an unsuitable person keeps lingering around her, I need to separate them first. After a moment of contemplation, Killian flashed his usual brazen smile. I'll help you, Tybe, he offered. As promised, I'll help, but on one condition. Tybe had anticipated a condition before even coming here, so she was prepared. Arms crossed, she asked, all right, what do you want? She could never have predicted Killian's answer, the one that drained the color from her face. Samantha, he said, break off your engagement with him. That's my condition. Tybe shot to her feet. Are you insane? Why would that be a condition? The Carley family's rights to develop and conduct business in the East, even asking for Azenia's beloved would be more beneficial to you. What do you gain if I break off my engagement? Killian offered a cryptic smile. Let me see. I hate seeing you bound to Samantha. Tybe stared at him, utterly bewildered, trying to decipher what game he was playing. Later, in the carriage on her way back, she gazed out the window, Killian's words echoing in her mind. Break off the engagement with Ethan. I was planning to do it eventually anyway, since I'll be fleeing to another empire. But why would he demand that as his condition? Even if I don't understand his motive, to secure his cooperation, I have to do exactly as he says. There's no other way, is there? I have no choice but to meet his condition. Even if he stays by my side, being rumored as a murderer will damage Ethan's reputation. The sooner the engagement is broken off, the better it is for him. Lost in thought, Tybe was walking absent-mindedly when a voice startled her. Where have you been? The mansion is in an uproar. Tybe's eyes widened in surprise as she recognized the speaker. Why is he here? It was Count Nobel, the leader of the Carly family elders. The same Count Nobel who, in the original story, had vehemently insisted on Adian's registration into the family. One of the people responsible for Tybe's expulsion. His presence here must be related to Adian. He was an elder, after all. Tybe curtsied. I went to the imperial palace on that carriage to take care of some business. Did something happen while I was gone? Count Nobel practically snarled. The entire nation is talking about the saintess, and you were leisurely out and about. Oh, it must be nice to be so young. Is that why she caused a national commotion? Tybe instantly understood the sarcastic jab. Her reply was sharp. You flatter me, Count. I truly admire and learn from my grandfather's spirit. I intend to distance myself from those who are foolish, greedy, and arrogant. Count Nobel's face turned purple with rage. My lady, are you insulting me? He roared. Tybe smiled serenely. Not at all, she purred. I was merely speaking about certain nobles who refused to set a good example. The Count knew he was being mocked, but he was powerless to do anything about it. Watching her chuckle, he could only fume silently. What an arrogant little girl. Across from him, Tybe realized she could clearly perceive his thoughts. Let's set that aside for now, Nobel continued, his voice strained. The saintess is completely oblivious to what's happening. Adian is trying to claim she's not the saintess. Tybe's eyebrows shot up in astonishment. Nobel pressed on. Not only is she refusing registration, she's also refusing the baptism ritual. How have things changed so suddenly? There must have been some sort of disagreement between the two of them at the party. How will the saintess handle this situation? In truth, Tybe was equally perplexed. Why was Adian so adamant that she wasn't a saintess? By now, she should have been registered and accepted her role. Is it possible that she followed me that day at the party and saw me summon the constellation? If so, I understand why she would think I'm the saintess and insist she isn't. But if she continues to refuse to acknowledge herself as the saintess, Adian won't be able to awaken her divine powers before the disaster strikes. Adian is naturally inept at harmonizing with magical power. So through the baptism ritual, she can increase her magical compatibility to face the impending calamity. Adian's power is crucial. With this thought, Tybe turned to her maid. Prepare to depart for the Illinois estate immediately. We must go see Miss Adian directly. Nobel looked at her, astonished. What? You're going there directly now? The princess is unaware of the current situation. The entire nation is calling her a rare villainess. So even if she comes forward, it will only worsen public opinion. Tybe answered with quiet confidence. That's precisely why I want to take the lead. Nobel questioned her again. Why? What's the reason? Bathed in the bright moonlight, Tybe's expression turned serious. Because I'm at the center of this issue. I'm the one who needs to put an end to it. Otherwise, people will keep talking about this. If you understand, I'll be going now. Just then, a voice cut through the night. Tybe, stop. Both Tybe and Nobel turned toward the sound. That voice, could it be? Tybe's grandfather appeared, his countenance stern. I forbid you to go see Adian. Tybe was taken aback. Grandfather? Nobel immediately bowed his head low before the elder Carly. Tybe, the head of the family has arrived. It seems the princess has decided to take action. Does she know she's the heir to the Carly family? Her grandfather curtly interrupted Nobel's musings. Count, go back. I don't want to be disturbed while speaking with my granddaughter. Nobel trembled at the icy look in the elder's eyes. I've heard recently that the master is using the princess, but the usually indifferent master is showing such favoritism towards that girl. It's best I leave now. He bowed his head like an obedient puppy. I made a mistake, sir. The two continued their conversation in a more comfortable manner. So Nobel quickly excused himself. After he left, an eerie silence fell. It was Tybe's grandfather who broke it. It seems you have much to say to me. Speak, Tybe. At his words, Tybe asked directly, "Do you also believe I threatened Adian?" Her grandfather responded with his usual coldness. "It's irrelevant. Even if you go anywhere, they'll tear you to shreds. In times like these, you shouldn't give them any ammunition. If you go there now, malicious rumors will spread even further." Tybe replied sternly, "If going there now will spread malicious rumors further, I will personally meet Miss Adian and persuade her. If Adian agrees to undergo the baptism ritual, the rumors surrounding me will disappear." Tybe spoke with deep sincerity. After listening, her grandfather calmly asked, "What if you can't persuade them? What will be the consequences if we let you go just like that? That's why I won't allow you to go out." My answer remains the same. With that, he turned and walked towards the mansion. In truth, her grandfather harbored his own worries. "I've called myself this girl's guardian for far too long," he thought as he walked, "but Tybe is facing many dangers, and all I can do in this situation is keep her hidden under the family's protection." He didn't know that Tybe stood there, her expression grave. Just as he thought the conversation was over, he heard her voice. "What?" He turned back, surprised. "What did you say?" Tybe's voice was thick with anguish. "Why are you shielding him now? These rumors are nothing compared to what I endured as a child. Back then, when I was in so much pain and exhaustion, I could barely bear it. I had no one by my side." She looked utterly desolate, standing beneath the night sky, finally voicing the feeling she had buried for so long, feelings she had harbored for Ethan. "I don't understand," she said, addressing her grandfather, "why you're protecting me like this. He never cared about you until now." Her voice was heavy with sorrow. From the very beginning, Tybe recalled, "I didn't completely trust him. This happened even before Adian appeared. A servant assassinated the saintess, and I, Tybe, was poisoned, suffering unbearable pain. She was taken away, and he arrested all the other corrupt servants, but in the end, he never came to my bedside to see how I was. Someone like that, even if he's being kind to me now, the days he turned his back on me keep coming back, one after another, and I'm starting to doubt his sincerity." After hearing Tybe's words, her grandfather stood there speechless. After a few seconds, he spoke in a low voice. "I understand why you're angry with me, but if you come forward now, the family won't be able to protect you." Tybe cut him off. "If that's the case, it would have been better if you had done so sooner." She turned to leave, grief welling up inside her. "If that were the case, I wouldn't even be considering leaving this place." Killian naturally demanded I break off the engagement, and then finally, she said she wasn't a saintess, and suddenly he started protecting her, and everything just happened, one after the other. It's not that I couldn't guess anything. The reason is that I'm not the original Tybe from Flower of the Monster. In Flower of the Monster, Tybe committed countless evil deeds. So both Killian and her grandfather turned their backs on her. When I was little, he caught me throwing eggs at a carriage, so he knows my true nature. It seems our relationship has changed since then. Maybe it's because of my actions that he gradually changed too. It's not that I don't understand, but why now of all times? When I was little, part of me always thought about going far away, and another part considered staying here. Because I've transmigrated, the events of the novel won't unfold normally, right? The thought filled Tybe with a strange sense of exhilaration. After all, even after Adian appeared, I might still be able to live as a lady of the Carly family. That way, I wouldn't be hated by anyone. I used to think that if I lived a blameless life, everything would be all right. Grandfather and Killian. A strange grandfather who never reached out to me. A friend who betrayed me at the moment I trusted them the most. Because of their actions, my decision to leave this place is final. I thought I had forgotten everything, but whenever I think of that day, I feel uneasy. It all started 3 years ago, the day the Crown Prince was conferred his title. Tybe was there, thinking quietly to herself. I knew Killian would become the Crown Prince. This feels really fresh. That day, Killian also smiled gently at Tybe. In that pivotal moment, Tybe thought to herself, after all, is it me who feels closer to Killian? Because the day before in the garden, Killian gently kissed Tybe's hand and said, "Every emperor has a political partner, Tybe. We hope it's the Carly family." Returning to the day of Killian's inauguration, she thought the position of empress that Killian offered her. She came here today to give him her answer. If it's Killian, even if it's later revealed that I'm not the saintess, he'll still be by my side. Someone who looks at me wholeheartedly, not as the saintess. If I have someone like that by my side, I wouldn't mind never leaving this place. If he hears the answer, he'll smile and say, "I knew it." He'll act as if today is fortunate. However, as Tybe walked down the hallway. She once again heard the whispers, the gossip about her, about the prince having a special relationship with a young lady of the Carly family. One woman, glancing her way, remarked, "Is His Highness truly interested in her pink hair ribbon? Isn't it because she's the saintess? He's marrying her solely for the benefit of the nation. If that value diminishes, the prince's affection will also wane." They were unaware that Tybe stood just outside, listening to everything. She silently mocked herself. The situation is just like when I was a child. I'm even surprised that I can't say a single word, and just ran away. But I'm not a child anymore. Tybe walked in confidently, hands on her hips. "The one with the pink hair. Could you tell me more about that?" Hearing this, the two women's faces paled. "Princess, this has nothing to do with you." Tybe looked at the two coldly. "That's not true. Your faces were very close to His Highness. I remember it clearly. The eldest sons of the Velcro and Eugene families of the board. Both of you are the prince's closest confidants. Because these words came from people like you, they can't be taken lightly. Marcus Eugene, please tell Killian, if His Highness thinks of me as a tool, we will never be together." After Tybe left, the brown-haired man anxiously paced back and forth, gritting his teeth. "What should we do now? If the Emperor finds out about this?" The pink-haired man smiled calmly. "Yes, we just need to keep quiet and pretend this never happened." Outside, the sky had already darkened. Killian sat alone, waiting for Tybe, worry gnawing at him. "Tybe is late. Since she showed up at the investiture ceremony, I thought she would give me an answer. Should I wait a little longer?" Unbeknownst to him, thanks to a pointless misunderstanding caused by those two idiots, Tybe was now crumbling in her room, and he would never receive her answer. After that day, despite knowing of Killian's betrayal, Tybe didn't leave the mansion. One day, she received a message from Malin. The communication device, disguised as a bracelet and inlaid with a sparkling blue gem, emitted a familiar voice. "Miss, are you just going to stay home like this?" Malin seemed unable to bear watching Tybe's spirit continue to sink. Tybe simply wrapped herself in a blanket, sitting on her bed all day, going nowhere. "I'm tired of everything right now. I don't want to see anyone for a while," Tybe told Malin in a lifeless voice. Hearing Tybe say this, Malin had no choice but to sigh deeply. "If that's your state of mind, there's nothing I can do either," he said. Suddenly, Malin thought of something. "Speaking of which, I heard your fiancé is coming to the capital. Did you know?" Malin said casually, but his words startled Tybe. The bored expression on her face instantly vanished, replaced by shock. "What?" The news was like a bolt from the blue. She had planned to stay home for a while to heal, but she hadn't expected her fiancé to arrive at this time. Despite the sadness and disappointment from the betrayal, she still had to pull herself together to greet her fiancé, Ethan. The fiancé chosen by the Carly family had been on the battlefield, so Ethan and Tybe had never actually met. Although he was a character who greatly admired Tybe in the original story, she still needed to be cautious, as this was their first direct encounter. Tybe approached her first meeting with Ethan with a heavy heart and a great deal of caution. As Tybe reminded herself to be strong, a loud shout came from outside. A tall man with a handsome face and golden hair that shone like the sun now tousled from haste. His eyes, as blue as the sky, were filled with apology. Panting, he said, "I'm sorry." He must have had to run to get here in time for their appointed meeting. "You were so rushed and late that you couldn't control the volume of your voice." The slightly loud voice made Tybe's eyes widen in surprise. She probably hadn't expected her fiancé to appear like this. "I spoke a little too loudly." Realizing his volume was a bit excessive, he quickly shut his mouth. In his fluster and embarrassment, he seemed to hold his breath, causing his face to flush crimson, looking incredibly endearing. Seeing him like this for the first time was completely unexpected, and Tybe couldn't help but laugh. Ethan's flustered appearance looked quite amusing. Perhaps because of this, Tybe's guard also lowered, and she forgot all the frustration, exhaustion, and disappointment that had accumulated from the long period of betrayal. Smiling, Tybe reassured him, "I just arrived too." That smile looked incredibly relaxed. Seeing Tybe smile so brightly calmed Ethan as well. He felt immensely happy and honored to be the reason for that smile. The meeting, which Tybe had felt reluctantly obligated to attend, now brought a thought to her mind. "This is surprisingly nice. I initially came here purely out of duty, but were strangely compatible." Tybe found, unexpectedly, that the more they talked, the more his innocent demeanor put her at ease. Conversing with Ethan was entirely different from the tiring exchanges she often had with other nobles. Meeting Ethan had lightened her heart considerably. His gentle and affectionate behavior had been a true comfort during that time. Looking back on the current situation, after much deliberation, whenever I felt weary, it was always Ethan who consoled me. He always brought a sense of calm and relaxation. I truly miss him, miss the feeling of being with him. Although it's a bit late now, should I leave a message on the news page? The longing to connect with him spurred Tybe's desire to talk to Ethan. So, Tybe glanced at the news page, and to her surprise, it was glowing, indicating a waiting message. A mixture of joy and astonishment washed over Tybe as she left her own message. She picked up the news page, feeling the deep connection between them. This alone significantly brightened her mood. Ethan's message was a whisper of affection. Tybe, I missed you so much, so I'm writing this. I had tea after dinner and suddenly thought of you. We had this tea the day we first met. Tybe immediately replied, I was just reminiscing about our first meeting as well. 3 years ago, my first time in the capital, do you remember? Even though I'm working, when I received Tybe's reply, I put everything aside. What's work? What's more important than replying to my fiancé's message? Replying to Tybe's message has to be the top priority. Ethan never missed an opportunity to express his affection and whisper sweet nothings to Tybe. He never forgot a single moment spent with her. Seeing Ethan reply almost instantaneously, Tybe thought he must have a lot of free time and marveled at the wonderful coincidence. It was just when she needed a conversation to soothe her complicated emotions. We met at a cafe we rented on the outskirts of the capital around 3 p.m. The interior of the cafe was decorated with lilies and irises. Based on her current date, that day seemed to flash before Tybe's eyes again. Tybe hadn't expected him to remember so clearly. He truly cherished the details. She began to tease him. Ethan, do you remember how flustered you were that day? I didn't know you'd remember so clearly. It's so embarrassing. The teasing was so successful, I couldn't help but laugh. How could I not remember? You even asked if I liked cake, but I clumsily didn't answer. The memory of their first date surfaced in both their minds. Do you like flower cakes? I don't know, I like puff pastries. That's what I said. Remembering the awkwardness of that moment, Ethan's face flushed. I was quite clumsy back then, he thought. But when he learned that the arranged marriage his family had set up was from that day, he couldn't quite contain his overflowing joy. Could this be fate? Now I can't help but show off my newfound ability. Now I can answer your questions properly, not like the stuttering mess I was before. As the story progressed, Tybe asked Ethan, why did you write to me today? Ethan's face seemed to pause slightly. The pen, which had been moving rapidly, stopped. Instead of continuing to write, he remained silent. Because I haven't seen your reply yet, I feel like I might have gone too far. I didn't see your reply, and maybe you were confused. I really went too far with the jokes. I have to write again to make up for the jokes. Just as I was about to continue writing, Ethan's reply arrived. Because I was worried about you. Hearing Ethan's expression, Tybe was quite surprised. Perhaps she hadn't expected that to be the answer. Then, with a pause, Tybe pondered how to respond to his concern. How should I answer this? It was precisely what she longed to hear. Yes, he was worried about her. That was what she craved, someone who cared. His messages continued to arrive. Even if I can't help, I still wanted to ask about your well-being. I miss him so much. Ethan, his affectionate words intensified the longing in Tybe's heart. That longing spurred her to action. I want to see Ethan right now. Driven by the urge to act, she immediately sent Ethan a message, telling him she would come to the garden and to come outside if he heard her singing. Throwing on a thin shirt, she left her room at once. But because she had been forbidden to go out, leaving the estate now would be difficult. Now she had the power. Ethan, this problem can no longer trouble you. It just so happened that today was an auspicious day to summon Pisces. Without hesitation, she immediately summoned the constellation. A lovely small fish appeared, with a beautiful, flowing tail and eyes that shimmered with starlight. The little fish exclaimed, "It's been a while since I've been to the human world. I don't know how long I've been waiting for your summons. Is there anything I can help you with, Pisces?" The small fish swam happily in the air before Tybe. "I need the ability to accomplish anything." "Your ability. There's a place I want to go." After receiving Tybe's message, Ethan quickly rose from his work chair. Perhaps she's planning to escape. Looking at the sky outside, he felt a twinge of worry. The sun had long since set. Duke Carly was still very strict. There was bound to be a tight schedule. But since she said so, Ethan chose to believe. "My fiancé, I'll have everything ready to welcome you." Ethan called for the butler, instructing him, "Butler, don't let the servants wander the halls. She's someone who never jokes. So she really will come here today just to see me." Ethan was deeply touched by Tybe's actions. He hurried outside, and hearing the singing, he opened the door with a heart full of joy and anticipation. Sure enough, outside was his beautiful fiancée. She sat on a bench, singing like a nightingale. Her face as she sang was so lovely, her voice so enchanting. Tybe opened her eyes, and now she looked like an angel, captivating, impossible to look away from. Tybe asked Ethan, who stood before her, how he felt about the night's music. Ethan knelt on one knee, expressing, "Like a dream," he said, gently kissing Tybe's hand. Standing up, he continued, "Because I prepared somewhat hastily, there might be some oversights. But I will make you as comfortable as possible. I've been preparing for a while to welcome you in the best way." Ethan draped a coat over Tybe's shoulders. "It's cold, put this on first. The air in a room that's just been heated is still chilly." "No, perhaps it's because you came to see me so suddenly," Tybe reassured Ethan, telling him not to feel bad about the lack of elaborate preparations. Then Ethan offered her a seat, saying, "Please, sit here while I get you something to drink." Tybe exclaimed, "Thank you, Ethan." At this moment, Pisces was still by Tybe's side, small enough to hide behind her hair. Seeing Ethan's calm demeanor upon seeing Tybe, Pisces couldn't help but wonder, doesn't that person ask how she got here? This was also what Tybe was pondering. She had decided to see him so suddenly just now. It was all too rushed. But she didn't intend to hide this powerful ability from him either. If he asks how I got here, if I don't have a carriage, I'll explain this ability right away. But Ethan didn't ask anything. He simply welcomed me happily. It's clear he has a lot of questions. Perhaps because he cares about me that he's acting this way. This truly touches me. Deciding to see him was the right choice. "Pisces," she called to the little fish swaying before her. "Thank you for bringing me here." To Tybe's gratitude, Pisces gently nuzzled its small head against her, promising, "If it's about connection or something, then I'm quite confident. Call me if you need me. We'll continue." Having just bid farewell to Pisces, Ethan returned. He offered Tybe the glass of water in his hand. "Here," he said, concerned. "It's good for you to drink something." Seeing him still standing, Tybe gestured for him to join her. "Come and sit down. We've both been running around, busy for so long." Just as she finished speaking, a voice called from outside, "My Lord Duke, I've brought the things you requested." Ethan smoothly replied, "Let them in." As instructed, 2 servants entered, carrying an assortment of items. A maid draped a blanket over Tybe, who still wore a bewildered expression. "I've brought a blanket for madam. I'll take care of your coat." The maid's colleague then addressed Tybe, "And this is a dessert to accompany your wine." Tybe wondered when the pile of miscellaneous items they had been carrying had transformed into a plate of food. Confused by the unfolding scene, Tybe called out to her fiancé. "Ethan, what is all this?" she asked. No sooner had the question left her lips than furniture was brought in and arranged. Now, sitting together, wrapped in blankets, with desserts laid out on a table before them, they felt a sense of warmth and comfort settle over them. The space, which had felt empty when Tybe arrived, was now remarkably cozy. He had even prepared servants. "Are you pleased?" Ethan asked Tybe. She readily offered her praise. "It's lovely, your thoughtfulness and attention to detail. Sometimes I wish I could live here forever." Tybe spoke innocently, unaware of the weight her words carried for Ethan, given her earlier desire to break off their engagement. Hearing her say this brought a flicker of awkwardness to Ethan's expression. He might have been picturing a house filled with children. Ethan shared his feelings with Tybe. "I prepared all of this, thinking of you. I didn't know when you might come, but I held on to the hope that you would, one day. I collected these things one by one, and before I knew it, there was so much. I'm so glad you're here." Just as I said, my face is now brimming with a bright smile, radiating light, as if the brilliance I emanate could erase all the darkness and stillness outside. Ethan's smiling face and radiant demeanor gave Tybe pause. "So, you're letting me keep all of this?" Tybe asked, gesturing around. Ethan generously replied, "Of course. That's why I prepared all." Tybe's gaze fell upon a collection of glittering jewels. "Can I have all these jeweled ornaments too?" she inquired. Ethan, eager to give her anything she desired, immediately responded, "Take them, my dear." Being here with Ethan, Tybe felt like a carefree child, able to ask for anything without the usual constraints of noble society. It even filled a void of affection she had felt in her childhood. She also took a liking to the paintings and all the books on the bookshelf. Granting her wishes, Ethan agreed to have the servants move everything to her residence the following day. Hugging a teddy bear, Tybe asked, "Do you have this teddy bear too?" Ethan's demeanor remained gentle. His expression now resembled that of a kind elder. "I'm glad you like it," he replied warmly. Seeing his immediate agreement to her every request brought a wry smile to Tybe's face. "Is there anything I can't have?" she teased. "If I ask for anything at all, will you really give it to me?" Ethan responded with a smile of his own. "Because I want to. If it comforts you in this way, then you can have everything." He took the opportunity to continue expressing his feelings for her. Tybe chuckled. "I know what you'll ask for. Anything at all. Your possessions," she finished, their hands clasped tightly together. He leaned closer, his face near hers. "Even myself," he murmured. "I would give myself to you. I would gladly give you everything." The emotion in his eyes swirled like a restless sea as he spoke. He yearned to close the distance between them, but she always seemed to take a step back. He had always felt pushed away, but now, it seemed, everything was changing. She had come to him when he was at his most weary. The words he had long been unable to utter to her. This was an opportunity he couldn't bear to lose. "So, you can ask for anything," Ethan repeated, his gaze filled with a complex array of emotions. Ethan softly called her name in his heart. Tybe's resolve to leave seemed to waver in that moment. "He's given me unconditional love. I want to give up everything and lean on it. Right now, I just need to hold on a little longer, just a little bit more, and we can easily be close to each other." But the image of a bloody man locked in a dungeon flashed through Tybe's mind. She was almost rendered weak by his affection. Releasing the hand that touched his cheek, Tybe firmly said, "I'm sorry, Ethan. I can't do this. The tragedy in the novel, I can't let it repeat itself." Hearing her response, Ethan panicked, fear creeping into his voice. "What's wrong? Is it my fault?" Ethan admitted. "Is it because I'm not good enough?" Tybe gently told him, "On the contrary, no one will love me like you do, but perhaps there won't be a future." Ethan immediately cried out, "Why?" Tybe continued, "Ethan, it's you. You're a good person. I want you to be happy." Hearing these words from Tybe, he was frightened, speechless, only able to call her name in a choked, desperate manner. "Tybe." Ethan tried to salvage their relationship. "It's all right. You don't have to rely on me. We can be good friends." But Tybe still completely refused. "The situation is dire right now. If I continue to rely on you under these circumstances, I'm not sure if it's using you as a shelter. Don't try to force or question. Just talk about other situations. If things get better, our relationship, you can reconsider." Seeing Ethan's clear attachment and unwillingness to let go, Tybe couldn't be cruel enough to say more heartless words. A long silence stretched between them. Then she told Ethan, "I understand. I didn't reject him, but I didn't agree either." Afterwards, he escorted Tybe back, their late-night conversation ending there. Standing by the window, looking out at the dark, silent night, I felt such irony, the person holding the only path to my happiness pushing me away, telling me to go be happy. Ethan quickly turned and entered the room, ordering his guard, "Call, bring that person to me." The pure and gentle face he wore in front of Tybe was gone, replaced by one as terrifying as an Azura, his eyes filled with killing intent. "We must meet those traitors. Poor fellows. They're surely meant to be the cushions to vent all our fury." Waking up the next morning, sunlight streamed through the window into the room. Tybe was still lying in bed, exclaiming, "Why? Using Ethan in this situation is really dangerous. How could I do that? What's the difference from being arrogant?" No, Tybe said to herself, and it was the first time she had seen such a strong contrast on his face. Deep hurt mixed with a pleading look full of attachment. "If things get better regarding our relationship, can you reconsider?" Seeing him so pitiful, Tybe couldn't refuse, so she responded that she understood. But wouldn't that give him a useless opportunity? She would be leaving. She felt deeply uneasy about her response. The maid's call came from outside. "Miss, are you awake?" But this didn't stop Tybe's thoughts. She was still immersed in her own mind. "However, many things happened, but today I made up my mind." Tybe opened the drawer, pulling out a letter from her desk drawer that had been prepared for who knows how long. Come in. Entering the room, the maid, Emily, said cheerfully, "As usual, I've prepared warm water for you to wash your face. Your meeting last night with the Duke's residence was second to none. I know everything." Tybes said to her maid, "Thank you, Emily. Please deliver this letter to the Crown Prince," Tybes said with a meaningful smile, "and tell him to visit as soon as possible. I won't let things go his way." Crown Prince Killian received Tybes' letter. He laughed, having reached his destination. "An arrogant noble dares to tell me to come, but it's me, Tybe." Despite his words, the Crown Prince, Killian, personally came to the Carly residence, striding towards Tybe, who stood in the vibrant garden. Tybe greeted him with a smile. "As you can see, under these circumstances, I cannot leave the residence. If you wish to see me, Your Highness, I have no choice but to ask you to come here yourself." The arrogant Crown Prince ignored Tybe's somewhat haughty words, taking a seat and getting straight to the point. "Tybe, you call me here, perhaps to accept the conditions I offered last time?" Tybe didn't answer Killian's question directly, instead bringing up a seemingly unrelated matter. "The Founding Day Festival will be held in 2 days." Tybe continued, sitting opposite Killian. "The saintess is supposed to light the torch, but she has consistently refused, not only at the temple, but also with the royal family. The organizers must be quite embarrassed now, wouldn't you say? And the one hosting this festival is the prideful you." Finishing her statement, Tybe offered a knowing smile. Her implied meaning and knowing smile put Killian on guard. The usual smirk he wore disappeared, replaced by a serious expression. "What do you mean?" Tybe placed a hand on her chest, a gesture of taking responsibility. "I will resolve this issue. But you must know, there's no such thing as free help." Tybe addressed Killian. "The terms of the deal need to change. In exchange for facilitating the re-enthronement ceremony at the Founding Day Festival, you will not interfere with the cancellation of my engagement." Hearing Tybe's words, Killian's expression hardened, a flicker of discomfort crossing his features. He turned his head slightly, a hint of anger in his voice. "You're doing this just to prevent your engagement from being canceled." Tybe clarified. "It seems you misunderstand." She declared with a serious expression, "I will be canceling the engagement, but I want you to stay out of our affairs. This is a matter between Ethan and me. These aren't bad conditions for you either." How clever. At first glance, Tybe's conditions seem even better than what I initially offered. She originally came to ask for help. "If you live long enough, you'll eventually bow down to me." But now she has complete control over this deal. That's right, indeed. He clenched his fist. On the contrary, it now appeared as if he was the one asking for help. Suppressing his discomfort, Killian elaborated on the details of the problem. Adian continued to refuse to attend the lighting ceremony, causing the royal family's credibility to plummet. Killian stated gravely, "We can't rely on mere speculation. We need a method to entice her to participate in the festival." Tybe responded with a touch of amusement. "If that's the case, don't worry. I can guess why Adian is acting this way." How could Killian know that the very person sitting before him was the cause of all this? Adian refuses visits from everyone, but she'll want to hear what I have to say, so I can definitely persuade her. Tybe told the Crown Prince confidently. "I'm sure her face is full of knowing expressions. I'm the only one who can solve this problem." Seeing Tybe like this, Killian could only cover his face in exasperation, entrusting the task of persuasion to her. He then changed the subject. "Tell me your plan for capturing the criminals." Tybe began to explain her plan to Killian. She summarized, "In short, it's a trap. It's not too difficult, as the criminals' methods are always the same." Killian inquired, "You mean all those who have wronged you?" "Yes." While chatting with Killian, Tybe snapped her fingers. Just like that, Emily entered, pouring tea for the two of them, the conversation not missing a beat. Now everyone's attention is focused on me and Adian. Starting from the royal banquet where I accidentally touched Adian's hand, there have been misunderstandings that we don't get along, and rumors that Adian denied being the saintess because I threatened her. Threaten? If Adian attends the grand festival at this time, how will the criminals emerge? Crown Prince Killian fell into thought, resting his hand on his chin. If I send someone to raid the scene now, with so many people present, it will be difficult to pinpoint the culprits. People will easily be swayed to point fingers at you. But contrary to Crown Prince Killian's worries, Tybe saw this as an opportunity. The Crown Prince seemed to realize something, rising to his feet in surprise. Tybe continued, "Adian will enter the cathedral as planned to light the torch, and I will be there as well," she stated, a determined look on her face. Tybe's words were so unbelievable that Crown Prince Killian couldn't help but exclaim, "Are you insane?" Do you think it's even possible? Unfazed by the Crown Prince's outburst, Tybe continued, a smile playing on her lips. Until now, the rule has been that only one person can light the torch. Isn't that why I brought you into this? The Crown Prince, as the host of the Founding Day Festival, was so surprised and flustered he couldn't modulate his voice. If it were anything else, it might be feasible, but this won't work. The lighting method is stipulated by the temple. Tybe spoke as if it were a matter of course, something he simply needed to be informed of. Seeing her like this, Crown Prince Killian could only clutch his head in exasperation. Good heavens, Tybe reiterated. Remember, everything related to the torch must be kept confidential until the day of the Founding Day ceremony. On that day, we must bring Adian to the holy grounds at all costs. Deploy personnel covertly throughout the holy grounds in case the criminals appear. If our prediction is correct, and the criminals emerge to attack Adian, then we must have our forces assembled and waiting to apprehend them. After the discussion with Crown Prince Killian, Tybe thought to herself, this is the plan that will be made public. No one will know about the constellation ability I possess. It's a variable the criminals won't anticipate. I will use this ability to capture them. Then, she turned to the Crown Prince with a smile. So, do you have any objections? Killian could only sigh in defeat. He was already well aware of Tybe's audacious nature. He then told her that even if he had objections, he was in no mood to listen. Then, Killian, with his usual arrogance, gave Tybe a promise. I will do as you wish. Tybe saw Crown Prince Killian off, thinking to herself that the war had already begun. All that remained was the matter of her being allowed to leave the residence. Speak of the devil, her grandfather appeared right on cue, asking, why was the Crown Prince here? Tybe thought, when I snuck out of the residence to see Ethan, because it was only for a short while. I could hide it. As for the Founding Day ceremony, it's a large, day-long festival. To be able to attend that festival with Adian, I must be free to leave the residence. While pondering how to respond, she answered her grandfather's question. He just came to see an old friend. We chatted for a bit. Well, chatting is it? Is that all? He replied. Tybe thought, even if I think this way, I still have to ask for permission to go out. But I still can't bring myself to say it. After our argument last time, this is the first normal conversation we've had. Tybe thought, in this atmosphere, forget about allowing me to go out. You can't even bear to look at me. This seems a little too much. Thinking this way, Tybe couldn't bring herself to ask permission. I bid you good day. I'll be returning to my room now. Tybe reluctantly thought, there's no other way but to sneak into Adian's residence. Thanks to her constellation's power, the scenario even played out in detail in her mind. When Adian suddenly asked, Princess, how did you get here? She would reply, I snuck in. As Tybe was about to turn and leave in her imagined scenario, he suddenly spoke again. Do you have anything special to do tonight? His next word surprised her greatly. Let's have dinner together. Sir, are you inviting me to dinner? She had no reason to refuse his dinner invitation, and she also wanted a chance to talk to him. But she hadn't expected him to be the one to extend the invitation first. As the two dined together, he was the first to speak. Tybe, you're going to see him again, aren't you? I called the Crown Prince here because of that. The secret actions Tybe had taken were brought to light by her grandfather. Fear pulsed through her, but she told herself not to panic. He couldn't possibly know about the plan during the Founding Day ceremony. What could Adian be thinking? Tybe masked her apprehension with a confident, if not entirely truthful, response. I complained to the Crown Prince. Inwardly, she reasoned, I'll tell the truth, but lie about the important parts. I'll tell him I still want to see Adian, but I don't want to do anything that would worry him. That way, it'll be hard for him to realize the true nature of things. A slight sense of relief washed over Tybe, but her grandfather's next words startled her again. I don't intend to question your transgressions. He began to pour out his heart to Tybe, speaking of everything from the very beginning until now. Even when everyone around you thought it was impossible, tried to dissuade you, you still wouldn't give up. That stubbornness, that unwavering desire when you set your mind on something. A hint of sadness colored his features as he spoke. Perhaps, just like your father, your grandmother always pleaded with that boy with gentle words like, don't do anything dangerous. Your safety isn't just your own. At least if you need help, tell your family. and we'll be there to support you. Back then, I couldn't understand my wife, why she kept repeating the same words. But ever since that boy passed away in that accident, when I held that boy's cold, stiff, blood-soaked, and mangled body in my arms, I was filled with regret. Regret that I couldn't offer any words of comfort to that boy in that desperate moment. In the overturned carriage from that accident, I found you, nestled in your mother's tight embrace. A newborn infant surviving that horrific accident. It was because of your parents' love and protection. That, too, was a miracle. I thought that was God's way of giving me another chance. Tybe, I will protect you without fail. But now, when you're in danger, I can't even help you once. However, if you stay in the residence like this, your family can protect you until the public outcry dies down. So, can you give me a chance to protect you? Listening to his heartfelt confession, Tybe suddenly didn't know how to react. This had never happened in Monster Flower. It was the first time he had expressed such painful emotions. It was also the first time he had expressed his affection for her. I still can't forgive him, but I want to respond in the most honest way, just like the sincerity you've shown. Tybe decided to tell him the secret she had kept hidden in her heart for so long. I plan to leave the Empire. Hearing Tybe's words, he was truly astonished. Leave? He followed up with another question. Are you planning to go into exile? Answering his question, Tybe gave a small laugh and replied, I've been contemplating this for a long time. I'm going to the holy land of the Magic Empire. To reach that place, I study divine power and magic. She raised the knife in her hand, as if to demonstrate her resolve to leave. Originally, I planned to leave without any announcement, but if it's now, I'll declare it because he was willing to speak my feelings, and also because I want to respond to his feelings. Grandfather. His face looked as if he now understood everything. I understand why you supported Adian's naturalization, or why you easily gave up the position of saintess. It's all because you're going to leave this place. Tybe decided to tell him her truest feelings from the bottom of her heart. She couldn't find happiness in this place. Hearing Tybe's words and understanding her resolve, he replied, It seems you've made a very firm decision. Even if I try to hold you back, it's no use. He seemed to accept it, saying, Do as you wish. Everything happened so fast, so smoothly, that she couldn't believe it. So that means, he added, as if to confirm his earlier agreement to follow her wishes, he added, You can go see Adian. Tybe's joy was palpable. Not only had he agreed, but he was even offering to handle the potential fallout. It wouldn't be good if the public found out, so I'll say I was the one who came to visit. But it won't be easy for me to see Adian. Hearing this, Tybe composed herself and indicated she was already aware of the difficulty. She had heard the rumors, the fact that Adian didn't welcome visitors. He paused, considering, then commented, Everyone knows that, but it's impossible for a young lady who just debuted in society to react so quickly. Just as I'm protecting you within the residence, Count Gautier is protecting Adian in the same way. The scene shifted to Count Gautier and Adian. In stark contrast to the gentle scene between Tybe and her grandfather, Count Gautier crumpled sheets of paper, his voice booming toward the startled Adian. How dare you say those words without even consulting me? Do you realize what you've done, Adian? Count Gautier was truly furious now. You must apologize to the temple and retract your statement immediately. Adian simply averted her gaze. I apologize for not consulting with you beforehand, she said, her voice firm despite the Count's anger. But on this point, I will not waver. I have no intention of retracting my statement, because I am not the saintess. Adian's mind drifted to the past, to a time when she was about 10 years old and lost in the forest. Alone and terrified, she had cried out for help. Hello, is anyone there? Her faint cries echoed through the dark, cold air of the woods. She walked and walked, but she couldn't find a way out. This is no good, she thought, her small frame trembling with worry. I have to get back before dark. Unfortunately, as she wandered down a forest path, desperately searching for a way home, Adian encountered it. A massive wild boar, its eyes fixed on her, sharper than 20 swords. The distance between them was terrifyingly small. If attacked, her small body wouldn't stand chance. At 10 years old, she had only heard tales of such creatures, never seen one in person. The moment she saw it, she knew what she had to do, run. But her legs wouldn't move. Frozen in terror, the 10-year-old girl was paralyzed. Was this where she would die? But then, something astonishing happened. A smaller boar tugged at her skirt. Even more surprising, she could sense the creature's intentions. Little ones, Adian whispered. Looking into the glittering eyes of the baby boars, she understood their purpose. Do you want to help me? The The cuteness of the piglets banished her fear of their mother. The boars stared at her, and she calmly sat down with them. Oink! One of the piglets squealed happily, sensing that Adian understood their goodwill. The fear she had initially felt upon seeing the monsters vanished. Following the path they indicated, Adian safely reached the edge of the village. It was then she first realized her unique ability. Back in the present, Adian was certain she hadn't been mistaken at the party. The blue shapes summoned by the princess were clearly welcoming her joyfully, just like the monsters she had encountered that day in the forest. There was no difference. A shadow of sadness crossed Adian's face. Who knows if the princess has even realized her own abilities yet? So, until she knows the truth, I can't stand in the position of saintess. With unwavering conviction, Adian spoke confidently to Count Gautier. The princess is the true subject of the prophecy. Adian, Princess Tybe is nothing now. Count Gautier adjusted his spectacles, his voice laced with disdain. Duke Carly is fiercely protective of her. At this rate, she'll easily become the next duke. He continued, but all that awaits a princess who lost her position as saintess to become a duke is endless ridicule. So, Adian, you must reclaim the Carly dukedom's damaged honor by acting as the saintess. Count Gautier pressed his point, his voice bordering on frantic. But Adian remained resolute, unwavering in her belief in what she had witnessed. I saw it. The princess has a special ability. Clearly, there's been a mistake somewhere. Faced with Adian's unwavering stance, Count Gautier covered his face in exasperation. Softening his tone, he pleaded, "Even so, the fact that you are the subject of the prophecy remains unchanged. Doesn't the ability you possess prove it?" Adian struggled to find a counter-argument. He was right. She did have a special ability. Adian hesitated. Count Gautier pressed his advantage. "Do you think the true saintess is really Tybe? This is like betraying the temple and the royal family who declared you the saintess. On top of the rumors of the princess's attempted murder, she's also committed the sin of blasphemy. Are you going to make me wait and see, Adian?" Count Gautier's voice rose again, directed at the downcast Adian. "Don't tarnish the Carly name any further." With that, Count Gautier turned and left, his displeasure evident. "You are not to leave the estate until you change your mind." He had placed Adian under house arrest. His will was absolute. A servant burst through the door. "Count, you must come out immediately." Ignoring the servant's urgency, the Count continued to address Adian. "And the temple has already sent someone for the founding ceremony. His name is Thero." The servant was insistent. "Adian, don't interfere." He explained that Duke Carly himself had arrived. Hearing that the Duke had come to see him personally, Count Gautier had no choice but to hurry out. When he arrived, still slightly breathless, he stammered, "Your Grace, what brings you here?" Duke Carly replied calmly, explaining his presence. "I heard from my granddaughter. It seems Miss Adian mistakenly believes she is the saintess. That is to say, she saw Tybe in the dark and mistook her for using magic. In truth, my granddaughter is unable to appear, so I had no choice but to come here myself." At these words, Count Gautier couldn't help but rub his hands together in delight. "Could you lead me to a place where I can speak with Miss Adian privately?" Count Gautier eagerly responded to the Duke's request. "Of course, I'll take you right away." As they walked, Count Gautier thought to himself, "Perhaps I can advance the Carly diplomatic efforts sooner than expected." Upon meeting Duke Carly, Adian politely inquired, "Is there something you wish to tell me?" "You don't know yet?" Duke Carly's serious tone left her bewildered. "What are you talking about?" she asked again. Hearing her question, Duke Carly smiled faintly. Then, Duke Carly's face shimmered and dissolved, revealing Princess Tybe. "It's me, Tybe," she said to Adian. "If it were really me, Adian's uncle would have stopped me outside. Ethan, I borrowed his appearance for a moment." Adian stared, speechless, then stammered in astonishment. As I thought. I wasn't mistaken that day." Adian's voice was a little too loud. Tybe quickly covered her mouth. "Shoo, you're too loud. They'll hear everything." Adian, her expression awestruck, asked repeatedly, "What was that image just now?" Tybe sighed inwardly, explaining this would be rather complicated. "It's borrowing the power of the constellations," she explained. "A kind of magic and divine power. I borrowed the power of Gemini to create an illusion." Adian responded, "The princess makes it sound like nothing, but for me, who knows nothing about magic, that was truly amazing power." Adian continued, her voice firm with conviction. "After all, the saintess is the princess. Not me. Tybe nodded. Indeed, she saw me at the party that day. Worried that Tybe might think she was deliberately spying, Adian quickly explained, I didn't see her on purpose. I was just... Tybe shook her head, dismissing her concern. I don't intend to blame you. Ultimately, it was just a misunderstanding. There are many others besides me who can control the constellations. You'll see as soon as you visit the temple, Tybe explained. But Adian, who could control monsters, was unique. If not her, then who is the saintess? Adian was bewildered by Tybe's words. I don't understand. She's never been there before, and she's never imagined herself as the saintess or anything. Adian voiced her own insecurities. Regardless, I don't think I'm fit to be the saintess. The princess said that kind of power wasn't special, but there were very few people who could use magic and divine power. If I say so, people will stop criticizing you, and there will be people who believe you are the saintess. Just like me. Even so, the princess was determined to hide her power. Tell the truth, princess, Adian urged fervently. Please tell the truth, princess. Tybe was forced to share her secret. I can't lie forever. There's no other way. The truth is, I plan to go into exile. Adian could scarcely believe her ears. She stood there, flustered. What was going on? Tybe continued, her voice calm. Adian is right. With this power, I would be welcomed anywhere, and I could even reclaim my position as saintess. But if this power is discovered, the Empire won't let me go easily. Both the temple and the royal family would use me, so I've decided to leave. Tybe lowered her head, her voice tinged with despair. I'm tired of being used. Adian watched her, a pang of sympathy twisting in her gut. She had just realized something crucial. Until now, I thought the princess hadn't realized her own power and had unfairly lost her position as saintess. But the princess knows her power better than anyone. Hesitantly, Adian continued, worry etched on her face. I still don't know if I'm suitable for this position of saintess. The princess spent a long time building the saintess's reputation, only to have it pulled away in an instant. The suddenness of it all filled Adian with trepidation. I'm truly powerless in this position. It's terrifying. Sensing Adian's unease, Tybe stepped forward and took her hand, her grip firm. The question wasn't whether she was ultimately suitable. You are the saintess. Tybe's gesture brought a wave of emotion over Adian. Tybe looked directly into her eyes, her gaze steady. I want to see you become a splendid saintess, facing the continent's calamities head-on. Her voice was filled with conviction. No matter what anyone says, that fact will not change. Adian, trust me. Tears welled in Adian's eyes at the warmth in Tybe's words, leaving her speechless. Understanding dawned. Until now, I've only thought about escaping responsibility. Ethan, I firmly believe the princess is the true saintess. It's not the prophesied position of saintess that caught everyone's attention. I just wanted to go back to my old life. She quickly wiped the tears that spilled down her cheeks. The princess is right. I can't run from this fact any longer. Since the princess has made up her mind, I won't shirk my responsibility either. Because that day, I decided to stand by the princess's side. Adian declared to Tybe with newfound resolve, I will attend the founding ceremony. I will go to the temple and receive the baptism. I will become this empire's saintess. Tybe nodded in satisfaction. Good. Before that, I have a plan. You must go to the Constellation Guild headquarters. As soon as she opened the door, a dark aura materialized. It's been a while. First Queen Constellation. It was Malin. Tybe smiled. You know, Malin, I haven't been able to move freely lately because of family matters. Malin replied stubbornly. If the most powerful person in the guild is like this, what am I supposed to do? Tybe said calmly. If you had that kind of power, I'm sure you would have taken care of everything already. Thank you. Without you, I wouldn't have been able to be absent for so long. Malin looked slightly surprised at her words. Blushing slightly and turning away, Malin scratched his head in a flustered manner. Well, if not me, then who else could I entrust this work to? He immediately returned to the main topic. You know, I was quite surprised when I heard the news. I heard you and Miss Adian to collaborate. It seems you mentioned that plan. Tybe replied, because I've decided to be the bait to catch the culprit. Ethan, I have to do this, and she has to know the truth as well. A few hours earlier, Tybe and Adian had discussed this plan. Upon hearing Tybe's words, Adian had become incredibly worried. Even to catch a criminal, directly becoming bait was too reckless. But Tybe seemed to have no fear, calmly stating, I know it's truly dangerous, but I'll take responsibility for Adian's safety. Adian, however, strongly opposed it in the end. This is too hasty. Compared to the princess, I might not be as good, but at least I don't want to become a hindrance. This made Tybe a little uncomfortable. Adian firmly stated, "You just need to focus on catching the criminal. I'll ensure my own safety." Tybe shared with Malin, "When she first came to the capital, I thought she was just a child, but I didn't expect her to have such thoughts." Malin laughed upon hearing this. "Nothing special about it." Tybe asked, puzzled why. Malin explained cheerfully, "If it were the past, she would have handled everything herself, without telling anyone the truth." Hearing this, Tybe thought of herself. "Come to think of it, if it were me in the past, I would have shouldered everything myself because I thought there was no one I could trust. Should I trust her? No, I can't let my guard down because everything's been going too smoothly these past few days. I can't be negligent, and I still have things to take care of. Now, no more digressions. Let's get to the main topic. Malin, have you figured out what I asked you to do?" Malin said confidently, "Although it was difficult, I am the leader of the Constellation Guild. Of course, I have gathered all the information." He gestured towards the information board. The most unpredictable character there is young Master Lunette. Tybe thought to herself, "Even I'm not sure I can catch the culprit and prevent his death at the same time." Malin stuck a bloody knife onto the board. "The person I dealt with before disappeared after the party. Bounty hunters are coming and going every day. The guild is dealing with it, but it's hard to track a guy who knows nothing but messing around with women, and he already has a fiancé. You're suffering, and thanks to that, I can't wait for you to die." Tybe immediately reassured him, "Don't worry, it will end today." Now Tybe had a new plan. "Though it's a bit of a shame, I'll have young Master Lunette go into exile first." Hearing this, Malin was puzzled. "Exile," Tybe continued. "Malin, report to us the areas where the murders occurred." Malin recalled, pointing out each location. "Let me see, Lhasa, Hixland, Helio." He immediately noticed a pattern. "Perhaps." Tybe pointed at the map. "Yes, it all happened around the capital." Malin mused, "So the culprit's target is in the capital." Tybe didn't let him dwell on it, immediately stating her plan. "So if young Master Lunette leaves the capital, he can escape the culprit's target." Malin was dubious. "But how can we get him away? My brother always hides behind father." Tybe replied with a confident smile. "That's why I told him to keep tracking young Master Lunette. His private life isn't clean at all. They always stop rumors about him, changing women like he changes clothes from spreading. But what if it spreads at an important occasion? I mean, at the dinner party, the one Duchess Beneshja hosts every year, where young couples who are about to get married gather to ask for the Duchess's blessings and advice." Malin said, "According to the intel, young Master Lunette will definitely go, as such events have a good influence on him." Tybe sighed in response. "I guess he dares to attend such a large party because his father's status is rated too highly. Duchess Beneshka's standing in high society is incredibly powerful. But if young Master Lunette's long-hidden secrets are revealed there, of course, the Count won't be able to protect his son anymore. They won't even be able to survive in high society." Tybe said with a smirk, "Let him learn that he can't hide behind his father forever." Malin seemed intrigued by this as well. "I finally feel like I have a job to do." Originally, young lovers pledged their love. Attending the dinner party today will be a pleasure. Couples raise their glasses, celebrating the upcoming national founding anniversary and praying to the temple for blessings upon everyone. Tybe and Ethan also raised their glasses. Tybe smiled softly and whispered to Ethan, "Thank you for coming with me, Ethan." Ethan replied with a smile, "I just feel guilty that I can't spend the whole day with you." He felt bad because he still had unfinished business. "Perhaps you couldn't believe I came to the mansion." Seeing him so worried, Tybe quickly explained, "It's because I called you so suddenly." She gazed intently at her fiancé, reminiscing. "This is where we first met. Until now, I thought he was just a fiancé chosen by the family. But when I learned about his feelings for me, it became different. The nervousness feels completely different than usual." "Oh my." Suddenly, someone called out, "Princess, you were here." Tybe was delighted to see them. "Ethan," Count Gautier said with a straight face. He asked politely, "This is the first time I've met you. Are you Tybe's friend?" Tybe said, "Let me introduce you. This is my friend, Count Gautier, and that's his fiancée, Miss Cordell. They're the ones who invited me to this dinner party." Ethan said enthusiastically, "Duke, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've heard a lot about you from the princess." Ethan was about to continue, but Tybe shyly stopped him. Hey, She signaled discreetly. Don't you have something to tell me? Are you still upset in your heart? Really, I told you not to play such useless jokes. In reality, Count Gautier was Malin. The previous night, Tybe had instructed him to infiltrate the dinner party in this manner. You told me I had to attend that dinner party too. Tybe was calm. Giving him a false identity wasn't a big deal. Covering your face, feeling embarrassed, Mississippi. Perhaps because you look at my precious face every day. You don't know. Then he immediately turned serious again. As the head of the Constellation Information Guild, appearing at such a large event is quite difficult, like announcing to everyone that I'm a gang leader. Why not let me use my skills to sneak in quietly as usual? Tybe replied, in this situation, just sneaking in like that won't work. We need a nearby helper to create the situation we want. Suddenly, Malin had an idea. So if you asked that young lady or a certain friend. In fact, Tybe had also considered this method, but it was useless. The person she asked refused directly. I don't think there's such a person. I'm sorry, but I'll decline. I don't want to get involved in this matter. Tybe turned away, ashamed. That's right, make Malin cry. Even if my face is plastered all over the Imperial Plaza, I'll attend. Seeing this, Tybe immediately comforted him. If it's the issue he mentioned, you don't have to worry about it. Hearing this, Malin felt relieved. Tybe said excitedly, we found a market leader who will help us. Malin was still shocked. When I saw Gemini appear next to her, I was so startled I almost stumbled backward. It turns out Gemini can transform into the summoner's appearance. Difficulties aside, Malin signaled to Tybe. They're distributing the cake you're looking for over there. Tybe quickly turned to look at the person, young Master Lunette's fiancée, Princess Mashahira. She was the eldest daughter of a ducal family, and due to their declining status, she had to marry the son of the influential Lunette family. Malin said, it seems they've spotted us too. Young Master Lunette strode forward, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Well, if it isn't the rumored murderous princess herself. I can't believe you have the audacity to show your face here, swanning about as the Duke Savasilk II's fiancée. Seeing this, Malin's blood began to boil. What did you just say? But Tybe quickly intervened. It's all right, leave this to me. She walked boldly towards Lunette. It was strange. She hadn't expected young Master Lunette to say such a thing. He was a most unwelcome person there. None other than young Master Lunette himself. Hearing this, Lunette was utterly enraged. What did you say? Tybe continued, this is a couple's dinner party, and yet you change girls like you change clothes. There's nothing here for you. Hearing this, the young master grew apprehensive. He still attempted to maintain his composure. I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. Could a noble princess like yourself possibly believe such baseless rumors? Tybe pressed on. I've been troubled by such rumors, so I only believe what I see with my own eyes. I had to believe it because young Master Lunette proposed to me when he came here. Lunette's face darkened. My young Master Lunette is always so full of himself, trying to tempt any woman into becoming his. Count Gautier, still disguised as Malin, could hardly believe his ears. Hey, is this true? Tybe replied calmly. Gautier probably wouldn't know, since he rarely attends gatherings like these. Young Master Lunette, ignoring the fact that I have a fiancé, still flirts with me, to the point that almost no one is unaware of it. Even hearing Tybe say this, his voice remained stern. Malin thought, this calls for a serious conversation with me. Count Gautier, seething, said, we need to have a word. Lunette, now frightened, stammered. Isn't all that in the past? His fiancé, showing no emotion, tried to pull him away. Lunette, let's go. There are too many people watching. She politely acknowledged the fault. My fiancé has been rude. I apologize on his behalf. This only further infuriated Lunette. I should be the one receiving an apology. Witnessing this, Princess Mashahira coldly told Lunette that creating a scene in this place wouldn't benefit him in any way. Isn't this what your father scolded you for last time as well? This is an important place, so let's bring this to a swift end. Hearing this, a thought suddenly struck Lunette. That's right, if I can just get through today and marry this woman, I'll become a duke. Because of his less than stellar reputation, he obediently left. In that case, I'll take my leave, he said, but inwardly he seethed. I'll make you pay for every single thing. Suddenly, a girl blocked Lunette's path. Are you young Master Lunette? Lunette was stunned when he saw her. This person. It was time for his secrets to be revealed before everyone. The girl continued cheerfully. So you were here.